High in the mountains, above the clouds, a martial arts master, John, climbs a ladder. After many years of cultivation, he finally reaches the immortal gates looming before him. He activates the passage, striving to pass through it and stop being an ordinary mortal. But as soon as a person touches the gate, an explosion occurs, which sharply pushes him back. A voice is heard speaking to him, sending forth heavenly swords of calamity. They destroy the ladder on which the martial artist stands, mercilessly throwing him down. The voice explains that despite John's strength, he still harbors regrets from his past life. The gates of the immortals do not accept him until he frees himself from them, removing the bonds from his mind and soul. With a bright flash, the boy falls to the ground, finding himself in the university courtyard, where a bully is beating his younger body. Beaten John lies unconscious, and Yao's friend runs up to him, genuinely worried about him. A group of attackers mock a skinny young man, convincing the girl to leave him. They insist he is weak and advise her to stay away and date their leader. But Yao angrily objects, making it clear that he will have nothing to do with such fighters. John comes to his senses, gets up, and realizes that heaven has returned him to his student years. Noticing a girl nearby, he suddenly hugs her, surprising Yao with an unexpected gesture. Ignoring the indignant cries around him, he greets his old acquaintance and notes that he missed her. The leader of the bullies, Li, behaves threateningly and demands that the student be released immediately. In response, John advises him to disappear, while his mood remains calm and favorable. Such words outrage Li's sycophants, who begin to loudly shout at his insolence. The leader himself picks up a brick from the ground, intending to teach John a lesson for his insolence. Yao stands in front of his friend, urging him to be reasonable, as they are on campus. John reassures her by gently pushing her away and assuring her that he will protect her from now on. The hooligans rush into the fight, but the young man skillfully avoids the blows, barely moving at all. He delivers a precise punch to the attacker's stomach, barely moving his hand, knocking him out instantly. He neutralizes the next opponent with a jump in the air, pushing them back with his foot. Li watches this in shock, but does not back down and aggressively rushes towards John. Stepping aside, the martial artist throws the bully over his shoulder to the ground. Students passing by look in surprise at the clouds of dust that suddenly rise into the air. By stepping on Li's head, John identifies Yao as his woman and warns her not to come near them again. The enraged leader threatens the guy, demanding that he be fired and trying to put him in his place. Previously, John was an outright loser who was overlooked, but everything changed when he intervened in the beating in front of him. He saw a girl being attacked by a group of servants of the richest young man of his generation, January. Subsequently, this girl denied the fact of the beating and even became closer to her former abuser. John himself began to be humiliated by everyone around him, and even his father suffered from this. The only one who never stopped believing in him was Yao, who remained steadfastly loyal. They went to university together, and although life was difficult, everything seemed brighter with her around. But even this last ray of hope was cruelly taken from John by a merciless fate. She was attacked because her best friend cheated on her, and she jumped from a roof to protect her chastity. Several years passed in pain and despair for the guy, until he set foot on the ancient Massif. Thanks to him, he entered a world where extreme cultivation of the creature's power became possible. There he found a book containing all the highest martial arts techniques of thousands of ancient races. John vowed to cultivate until he became an immortal emperor and returned for revenge. However, he proved too weak to pass through the gate and eventually suffered a humiliating defeat. Now, because of a mistake, he returned to the past and got a chance to fix what happened to Yao. Li runs away, promising to return and get even with John, and Yao notices that he seems different. He jokingly waves it off, assuring her that for her, he will always remain the same man. A girl named Hana approaches the couple and notices the commotion, believing that something interesting is happening. She speaks dismissively of John, and Yao stands up for him, trying to protect him. Hana waves her hand dismissively and leads her friend along, reminding them of the party they were invited to. It is this party that subsequently leads to the incident that results in Yao's tragic death. John tries to stop his friend, reaches out and suddenly notices purple chi energy. The guy hides it and backs off, saying that she should leave and find new friends. She agrees and they separate, but John is not going to allow the tragedy to happen again. The path of the immortal ruler is one of the most powerful ways of deep ordinary cultivation of strength. Purple Chi energy appears to be the source of the chaotic world, a legendary treasure that every immortal strives for. John had only seen this power momentarily during the celestial disaster and had no idea that he could obtain it. He plans to create the body of a king, and once completed, he will be able to enter through the majestic gates of the immortals. But now it is only at the first level, and the weak energy of the earth complicates further cultivation. Suddenly, John notices nearby fluctuations of spiritual power consistent with ancient martial arts. He goes to check and sees several men concerned about the condition of their ruler, Elder Sia. The old man suddenly pounces on his subordinates, wanting more and more spiritual energy for saturation. He enters berserk mode, and the escort tries to call the owner to save the situation. But before that happens, John appears and notices that Chia is using a false cultivation method. If he does not stop, he will remain crippled forever, and his existence will quickly fade away painfully. In his altered state, the elder does not react, feeling the flow of spiritual energy emanating from the boy. He attacks, seeking to absorb all the power to satisfy his insatiable thirst for power. John easily dodges the blow, preparing to help Elder Xia regain his balance. He presses on several acupuncture points, thinking that the method used does not purify the QE energy from impurities. When a person reaches a certain level, these impurities gradually begin to drive his mind into chaos. At this moment, one of the elder's subordinates suddenly attacks John from behind without warning. The young man rejects his rival without even turning around, which causes him great indignation. But before he can say anything, the old man comes to his senses and orders him to be silent. The elder introduces himself to John and expresses his sincere gratitude for the timely assistance provided. The guy is convinced that their meeting is a decree of fate and notes the man's long-standing internal trauma. If he continues to cultivate like this, he will eventually die, gradually losing his vitality. The entourage is shocked that John, from one point of view, can accurately determine Elder Xia's condition. The old man is interested in the possibility of help, and he offers to change and improve his technique. This is even more shocking, because the path is passed down through generations without any structural changes. The elder has doubts, but for the sake of saving the family, he decides to give the stranger in front of him a chance. He hands John a book describing the technique, and he quickly looks through its pages carefully. The young man notes that he has understood the essence of the path and is able to significantly improve its development. He leaves, promising to contact Elder Xia after he improves the technique as soon as possible. The subordinate, Hans, asks the old man whether it was wise to trust a random stranger without verification. He notes that for a master of John's level, his techniques look like a simple illustrated album. Hans subsequently contacts John, casually asking if the secret martial arts book had been altered. Meanwhile, the young man is riding in a car with Yao and Hana, who is outraged that he was taken along with them. She asks Yao why she invited the guy, and John explains that accompanying his girlfriend is natural. Hana gets angry and starts to reproach her friend for what she considers to be an extremely terrible choice of partner. While his attention is distracted, the boy answers Hans and arranges a meeting at the entertainment center. After this, he promises Hana a big surprise, which noticeably confuses and interests the girl. At the entrance to the club, they are met by a wealthy young man, Jack, along with his own subordinates. He has devious plans for Yao and is eager to spend a night of fun with her. He greets the girl like a gentleman and offers to escort her to the VIP rooms politely. But Jack's hand is squeezed by John, who suddenly appears in front of him, surprising the rich man greatly. Jack remains polite, although he is internally irritated by the guy's appearance next to Yao. As everyone goes inside, he orders his subordinate to gather the data and pass it on to Luna so he can get ready. Having sat down, the young gentleman asks when they started dating and why he didn't know about it until now. Meanwhile, Hana pours alcohol, and John suspects that she secretly mixed something into the drink. Unnoticed, The young man switches the glasses for Yao's safety, intentionally giving the poisoned one to Hana herself. Afterwards, she feels strange as a burning heat gradually spreads inside her body. An irritated Jack is informed that John is a nobody, without a respectable past or an influential family. Delighted by this, the rich man throws him a card with a large sum of money and demands that he disappear immediately. Yao is outraged when he finds out what is happening, and Jack explains that he is buying her for the night. John takes the card, and for a moment, the girl is afraid that he is actually agreeing to this. But suddenly he cuts it with lightning and forces Jack to swallow the rest. The frightened gentleman calls for Luna, and Hana advises John to retreat immediately. The young man has no intention of stopping. Preparing to slowly and painfully punish the impudent Jack, a stocky man enters the room, asking who dared to touch the owner on his land. The next moment, John's fist flies, but he easily stops the blow with one palm. The young man counterattacks, but the superficial blow does no harm to the powerful opponent on the outside. In fact, he uses mind control and orders Luna to leave the room along with his subordinate. The husband carries out the order, but Jack comes to his senses and takes advantage of the fact that John has his back to him. He points a gun at the guy, mocking that no amount of art can stop a fastball. John tenses up, having spent too much power healing Elder Xia this morning. Yao intervenes in what is happening, grabs a bottle from the table, and hits Jack on the head with it with all his might. She calls her beloved to run away, and the master shouts in rage that no one will leave here today. John twists his enemy's arm and slams his face into the wall, instantly changing his demeanor. He begins to sob and pretends to be a victim, begging for mercy and remembering his sick mother pitifully. A man with a cigar enters in response to the scream, who turns out to be the owner of the club and Jack's father. He wants to intervene, but before he can move, Hans grabs him from behind. Hans demands to be taken immediately to the man he ordered to be found. The owner nervously apologizes, explaining his son's problems, and Jack believes that help is coming. John greets Hans familiarly, and the gentleman decides that fear is finally clouding his mind. But the next moment, Hans bows and says that the elder sent him to pick up John. This respect is shocking, and the club owner is worried about who his son has gotten involved with. The club owner backs down, apologizes to John, and asks that Jack be spared further punishment. The young man replies that a simple apology is not enough, because his girlfriend is being picked on right in front of him. The young gentleman immediately justifies himself, declaring that they are deliberately slandering him and trying to disgrace him. But the father ignores the excuse, slaps him, and sternly orders him to shut up immediately. He knows very well what his son is up to and what disgusting things he does almost every day. After this, the man turns to John, allowing any punishment if he spares his son's life. Afterwards, John, Yao, and Hans walk away, and the man asks if one hit was really enough. The young man explains that this is enough to destroy the Meridians, and Jack will become powerless. After this, Hans hands over a card with 10 million as gratitude and compensation for his help. Outwardly, John remains calm, but in his heart, he is incredibly happy about the large sum. These funds will allow him to acquire many herbs to restore his spiritual energy. Once outside, Hans asks to go with him because the elder wants to discuss something. Yao gets the guy's attention, noting that she also needs to have a serious talk with him. The young man asks the man to wait in the car, and he takes the girl for a walk in the park. There, she sincerely apologizes to John because he warned her about Hana, and she didn't listen. The guy brushes it off, saying that he is now protecting her, and there is no need to worry about little things. Yao notices that John has changed a lot lately, but does not inquire about the reasons for these changes. She asks him to be careful because she won't survive if something bad happens to him. The young man unexpectedly kisses the girl and assures her that everything will be fine with him. After that, he rides along with Hans, and Yao stands and looks after him with hope. Suddenly, a man who recognizes her drives up from behind and kindly offers her a ride home. The girl gets irritated and demands that he leave her alone and stop bothering her. Ignoring the words, Qin approaches, trying to touch, reminding him of the upcoming marriage. Yao pushes his hand away and explains that she has a loved one and will not marry under duress. She leaves, and Qin is not upset, because he is confident that he will mercilessly destroy John. At this time, the young man meets with Elder Xia, who offers him any help he can. John takes the opportunity to hand over Ian's photo, asking if he knows the man. The old man has not met him personally, but he recognizes him as a second-generation member of the Ji family. The elder asks John what connects him with this man, and he tells his story. When John humiliated him and broke his father's legs, almost completely ruining their lives. At the time, he didn't understand the reasons, but now he wonders why the rich man acted so cruelly. John asks to find out the forces behind Ian and to explore the influence and capabilities of his family. The old man agrees and says that he will immediately send people to conduct a thorough investigation. Meanwhile, Li goes to Hong's martial arts school, seeking revenge for the humiliation. He asks his senior comrade Xiao to help, and he happily agrees for the sake of practice. The next day at school, a boy named Hao runs up to John with a very worried look. He informs the young man that he should run away, because the dangerous Xiao has already been sent after him. At this moment, the aforementioned young man appears, attracting the glances and admiration of all the girls around. He invites John to exchange a few blows to test and evaluate each other's level. The young man refuses, believing that the best solution would be to completely ignore the impudent Xiao. This angers the opponent, and he decides to attack from behind, calling upon a powerful spiritual force. John manages to block the attack with a shield that gradually becomes cracked. He recognizes the ancient arts of the Ming period and is surprised by their sudden appearance. But that's not all, and Xiao delivers another blow, throwing the enemy far back. He laughs, hinting that you need to know the dog's owner first before punishing him. John is left standing disappointed because his true cultivation has not yet returned. He has to look for another way to win, but too many people are already gathering around him. When using the Immortal Emperor form, unwanted effects may occur. He calls out to Xiao, shining rays of sunlight into his eyes to distract him. While the enemy is blinded, John summons a weapon created through a powerful transformation of Qi energy. This shocks the enemy, and he has to quickly dodge, saving himself from the inevitable blow. John doesn't lag behind, quickly approaching him to deliver a precise blow right to the face. Without slowing down, the young man knees Xiao in the stomach and then attacks from the bottom up. The opponent is unable to do anything, completely stunned by the incredible speed of John's movements. Beaten, he falls to the ground, leaving cracks all around and attracting the attention of a crowd of students. Everyone is stunned, as Xiao is considered a finalist in a prestigious martial arts championship. Jonah is not bothered by the fuss, because at that moment, Yao calls on the phone, reporting his parents' reaction to their relationship. They want to meet the guy at a birthday party in a few days. After some time, when the sky is covered with clouds and lightning cuts through the darkness, John arrives at Elder Xia's residence. He is met by an alarmed Hans, who urges him to go inside quickly and informs him of the complications. The Dingfang family suddenly burst in and challenge the elder to a brutal duel. They use incredible techniques, which gradually causes the old man to suffer an annoying defeat. In the arena, John sees a man summoning a blade of water and wielding it with menacing precision. He advises him to surrender before it's too late, but Xia stubbornly refuses to give in to his opponent. The well-being of the family is at stake, and the elder is not going to give it away to a stranger so easily. The opponent rushes forward, and Xia barely manages to block his crushing blow. John senses the falsehood and understands that the power does not belong to the man himself in the arena. Looking around, he notices a mysterious cloaked figure using a powerful technique. It becomes clear why all the family's wealth was at stake and put at risk. John is confident that the second round will allow him to defeat the unknown manipulator. The God Seal he wields is capable of transforming spiritual energy into various weapons. He creates an absorbing beetle that absorbs the dark figure and blocks the transfer of power. The insect rises into the sky and begins to absorb energy, drawing in the dark clouds. The crowd around watches the event in surprise, and the stranger recognizes John as the culprit. In the arena, Elder Xia's opponent freezes as all his strength suddenly vanishes. Unfazed, the cloaked figure creates a giant shadow bird over the arena. John had seen this before, and even 72 images of Sun Wukong couldn't save him from Erlong's revenge. The bird pounces on the golden bug, swallowing it and trying to devour it completely. An explosion occurs on the battlefield, throwing the elder back with force. Hans sheepishly asks to save his master, but the young man calmly reassures him. The bird, trying to absorb these insects, signs its own inevitable death sentence. A glow appears in the sky, destroying the dark technology, and a purifying light pours down on the elder. He is healed, filled with strength, and genuinely surprised by the unexpected transformations. Hans shouts, explaining that it is John's power supporting the elder. He adds that the enemy is also fueled by a mysterious foreign presence. The elder uses his new power without hesitation, preparing to strike the enemy. But he stops him, saying that his granddaughter is being held captive by an enemy family. The tied-up girl Feng is brought forward, which causes her grandfather to burn with anger. He tries to hit his opponent, but he threatens to immediately kill the defenseless hostage. Without losing his composure, John activates another technique and orders Hans to save Feng on his signal. He uses soul control to prevent the young mistress's neck from being cut. Meanwhile, the enemy orders his subordinates to demonstratively hit the girl in the stomach twice. One prepares to carry out the order, but the other, controlled by John, suddenly attacks him. The fight distracts everyone around, and the young man signals Hans to quickly grab Feng. He succeeds when control dissipates, leaving the subordinate disoriented and confused. The girl is untied and brought to John, explaining that it was he who saved her life. She thanks him, although she doubts it, because the guy seems too thin and frail. At this moment, the elder disarms the enemy, who begins to beg for forgiveness, admitting defeat. But Xia has no intention of forgiving and coldly raises the blade, created from Qi energy, over the enemy. However, it does not kill him, but pierces his hands so that the enemy can no longer move. After this, the elder warns that next time he will not hold back if someone hurts his grandson again. His subordinates bring him a piece of paper on which the old man makes a deal and hands it over to his defeated rival. He agrees to sign, after which the knife disappears, freeing her from captivity. When the head of the Dingfang family is helped up, he angrily addresses the man in the cloak. He assured that with his strength, victory would be guaranteed. But the result was defeat. The mysterious figure explains that the Supreme Master is present in the arena, so they should leave quickly. The stranger promises that he will be able to regain his strength in 3 days and wash away the shame he has received with John's blood. After this, he will return everything they lost and double it. At this time, Feng runs to her grandfather, but he does not pay attention to her and thanks the young man for his help. The elder extends the agreement to John, intending to transfer the Dingfang family's property to him. The guy agrees, realizing that this is just an attempt to gain his favor with the Xia family. Despite this, such an agreement could be useful for him and help him recognize those who offended his father in the past. Fen intervenes, offering to let John become her mentor to find out if he really is that strong. The young man agrees to give some advice in a few days, because it is difficult to refuse a young lady from such an influential family. After this, he again turns to the old man, asking him to find several herbs from the list and an empty house. John intends to perfect several pills, so he needs to be undisturbed. He is given an entire mansion, located in a remote area, ideal for the implementation of his plans. The next day, he prepares to begin, but realizes that he has forgotten to ask for the oven to be prepared for purifying the tablets. Then he decides to get out of the situation by using an induction hob and a regular frying pan. When it starts, it all feels like regular cooking. But as long as the temperature is under control, everything is fine. The key to creating quality pills is selected herbs with a high degree of purification and potency. After adding the last of them, John turns off the stove and a bright light bursts out from the pan. 2 small pills appear in the air in front of him, which he happily picks up with his palm. He then heads off to meet his girlfriend's parents, ready to make a good impression. In the restaurant lobby, he crosses paths with a blonde who looks at him dismissively and calls him a poor man. The young man only smiles in response to these words and moves on to search for a girl named Yao. When they meet, the girl introduces him to her aunt, who turns out to be the same woman from the hall. She pretends nothing happened, but John tells Yao that he saw his aunt take a credit card from a man's hands. The woman indignantly jumps up from her seat, but does not have time to say anything because a new guest appears. Chen enters the hall, and everyone assumes that he has come to propose to Yao. The young gentleman turns to the girl, noticing that she is holding hands with John. Sen is outraged that Yao did not warn her that her boyfriend would also come to the birthday celebration. After examining John, he contemptuously declares that he is unworthy of being near Yao. The brewing conflict is interrupted by the appearance of the girl's parents, a mother who looks very young, and an ordinary man. Sen greets the arrivals, flatters Miss Song, and gives her a gift, trying to impress her. This is a bracelet made of ice jade, which, although it looks beautiful, is useless. The blonde speaks enthusiastically about the decoration, mockingly noting that the Tsenya family is generous and rich, unlike some. Yao introduces John to his parents, which raises questions about whether he is truly worthy of a girl like her. The young man hands the lady and Mr. Song some pills, explaining that they will make them younger and live longer. They don't believe him, considering it the invention of a poor man who believes in a magical cure for all diseases. The blonde knocks the pills out of John's hands, demanding that he not disgrace them with his junk. Yao tries to calm his aunt down, but continues to insult the guy, to which he does not remain silent and responds in the same tone. The enraged woman calls security, ordering them to throw the young man out of the restaurant immediately. Yao turns to his mother, begging her to intervene and stop the guards, but she only remarks that their worlds are too different. At this moment, the mayor of the city, Yun, enters the hall and immediately notices the pills lying on the floor. Picking them up, he immediately recognizes them as high-quality medicines and asks the Song families who could have thrown them away. Everyone misinterprets his questions, deciding that the mayor is outraged by what he saw. Sen immediately suggests throwing away the pills, saying there's no point in dirtying your hands with such nonsense. Yun is outraged by such neglect, emphasizing that these are priceless tablets of exceptional quality that cannot be found anywhere else. The young gentleman was confused by what he heard, assuming that the man had simply made a mistake. The mayor irritably explains that he has studied medicine for decades and has no doubt about his own experience. Yun asks who brought this medicine, and Yao immediately points to John, who has not yet been taken out. The guy is stopped and asked to explain where he got such rare and valuable pills. The young man explains that he prepared the pills himself on an induction stove, shocking his interlocutor. Even if you turned the entire city upside down, it would be impossible to find a person with such amazing skills. The mayor bows low before John, begging him to share his wisdom and experience in creating medicines. But the guy, with feigned regret, replies that he won't be able to this time because he was kicked out of the celebration. An irritated Yun immediately turns to the crowd, asking who dared to offend such a master. The blonde hides fearfully behind Mrs. Song's back, not knowing how to behave in such a situation. Her sister advises her to come up and apologize because she cannot afford to insult the mayor of the city. The woman steps forward, expressing regret for her mistake, but Yun demands forgiveness from John specifically. Even though she is gritting her teeth, she asks for forgiveness, asking not to hold a grudge against her and to leave it in the past. Since this blonde could sooner or later harm Yao in the future, the guy decides to humiliate her. Before the woman can make things any worse, Ms. Song intervenes, slapping her and throwing her out of the celebration. After the blonde leaves the room, she also asks John for forgiveness for her relative's behavior. Yao defends his aunt, explaining that despite her harsh personality, she has a kind heart deep down. Not wanting to upset the girl, John decides to let the situation go, although he understands that his aunt has betrayed her. The party continues, and the mayor asks the young man to reconsider the fake recipe for Dan's pills. If possible, he would like John to correct the errors in this document. The young man agrees to provide the service, realizing that such connections will be useful to him in the future. As soon as Yun sees the updated recipe, he is instantly delighted with what he sees and does not hide his surprise. The mayor quickly leaves the banquet, wanting to test the new version of the created drug as quickly as possible. Tseng approaches Lady Song, declaring that he wishes to propose publicly and asks for his blessing. He believes that even though John impressed the mayor, He is still a poor man and loses to him. But at this point, Mr. Song intervenes, noting that the decision about marriage should be made solely by Yao herself. His wife supports this opinion, although more gently, suggesting that they discuss the issue at another convenient time. The young lady happily cuddles up to John, assuring him that she will not marry anyone but him. The enraged Tsen threatens the young man, after which he angrily leaves the room, not hiding his anger. Yao is upset that she is causing the guy difficulties, but John immediately calms her down. In this life, he is determined not to let anyone separate them, no matter what it takes. On the street, Qin contacts Xiao, who immediately realizes that someone has seriously angered his cousin. The young gentleman confirms this and asks for help in teaching the impudent man who has ruined his plans a lesson. Xiao wonders who is so desperate as to contact Qin and incur his wrath. Hearing John's name, he immediately becomes wary and replies that it is better not to deal with this. After these words, he hangs up, causing even more irritation to the young gentleman. The son is still convinced that John is just a poor dog and not even fit to hold a candle to him. The next day, the martial artist meditates, trying to regain his former strength. Due to the weak spiritual energy on Earth, cultivating the king's body is becoming increasingly difficult. He needs to find a place with sufficient energy levels, so he goes to the mountain peaks. Above one of them, he notices dark qi, a force that has absorbed all the energy in the surrounding area. A group of researchers is attacked by a huge swarm of giant beetles surrounding them from all sides. People try to fight back, but the creatures keep coming, and their strength to defend themselves is becoming less and less. John appears and saves the group, wondering if they are grave robbers. They deny this, introducing themselves as the Big Golden Trio: the girl Ellie, the husband Bai, and the fat man Chen. Another wave of beetles arrives, causing panic and alarm, but the young man again easily deals with them. The group is amazed that John has some kind of magic, trying to figure out when the world became a novel about immortals. A ferocious roar from the mother beetle comes from the cave, deafening the trio of adventurers and forcing them to cover their ears. Suddenly, the creatures grab Ellie and begin to drag her deeper into the cave, not giving her time to think. Fat Chen takes out his machine guns from his backpack, preparing to rush to his friend's aid without hesitation. John decides to follow them, as he still wanted to investigate the dark qi that was previously noticed in the area. Chen goes berserk, firing wildly around and rushing forward, leaving his comrades far behind. When they catch up with him, a huge beetle monster appears before them, clutching Ellie in its paws. She is encased in a slimy cocoon, and around her hang similar pupae, some of which have already dissolved. Bai immediately starts shooting at the monster, hoping to save his friend from captivity. But the bullets do no harm to him, ricocheting off his strong chitinous shell. The man decides to throw a grenade straight into the monster's gaping mouth, hoping for success. But this also does not work, and the two people are covered in sticky mucus, which begins to pull them closer. Fatty Chen turns to John, begging him to help them at a critical moment, without holding back his emotions. But the young man shows no particular desire to interfere. Recalling how they boasted about their weapons, he notices that they called his abilities futile tricks and acted too self-confident. Eventually, when the three begin to beg and apologize to him, John finally agrees to save them. Just one blow is enough to shatter the enemy's chitinous shell, instantly killing the giant beetle. It seems the creature absorbed too much dark qi energy, which is why its body became so huge. However, Lin's connections had not yet fully formed, which is what allowed John to defeat his opponent so easily. The young man dismisses the men by cutting the slime on their bodies with spiritual energy. But the victory over the monster angered the smaller beetles, who immediately attacked him from all sides. Although he easily takes them out one by one, there are too many of them, and some manage to bite the guy. Suddenly, the mother beetle gets up. She turns out to be not dead, but only temporarily stunned. An irritated John orders her not to twitch, promising to finish her off with a second blow and blow her to pieces. At that very moment, a poisonous sting flies out from under him, and he doesn't have time to dodge, so it pierces his shoulder. A group of adventurers decide to help John in gratitude for saving their lives. They start shooting at the bug, trying to distract it from the guy for at least a few moments. But the creature rejects them back with just one swing, once again threatening danger for everyone. Despite this, the attack proves useful for John, and he manages to collect himself and get up. He scoffs, because such a weak poison could never cause him real harm. Rushing forward, the young man delivers a crushing blow that crushes the monster's head. Standing over the body of his fallen enemy, he rejoices that the Emperor's body is resistant to poison. Otherwise, this bite could lead to serious problems that would be difficult to overcome. Fatty Chen points to a deep hole ahead, into which hundreds of small beetles are crawling. From its depths, a miasma of dark qi erupts, which John had not noticed before due to the fierce battle. He steps forward resolutely and jumps straight into the pit, causing concern among his companions. Inside, he discovers a huge cluster of human bones lying in eerie silence around them. A creature resembling a creepy and monstrous flower of unearthly origin has settled on one of the stones. The young man vaguely recognizes in it the treasure of Tai Sui, which feeds on the dark energy of dead creatures. Suddenly, tentacles burst out from its core, tightly wrapping around John and restricting his movements. This gradually destroys his consciousness, and he hears a voice advising him to stop resisting forever. He is surprised by the fact that this creation has its own consciousness and awareness. The monster gloats, marking a dead end where no one has ever escaped its deadly embrace. The young man's body is increasingly entwined with red threads, turning him into something like a cocoon. The creature is already preparing to swallow its victim when it notices a strange hidden power within it. On John's hand, it sees the seal of the King of Men. Not understanding who he is, the boy breaks free from captivity, explaining that in front of him is the body of an immortal king. Without hesitation, John grabs the strings connected to the enemy's fingers and directs energy through them. The monster begins to disappear, absorbing the young man and lamenting its defeat at the hands of a worthless man. After his revival, this marks the first time John has absorbed such a colossal amount of dark qi. This brings his cultivation base to a new level, reaching the level of a Grand Master. He also gains the ability to create red strings that can control the minds of others. Outside the pit, a group of treasure hunters wait for John to return, worried that he has died. But suddenly the young man himself appears, surprising and at the same time delighting the stunned trio. The young man receives a message on his phone asking him to come as quickly as possible because something important has happened. He is worried that Qin has caused some trouble again, so he says goodbye to his new acquaintances and gets ready to leave. Fatty Chen says that if the guy ever finds himself in the city of Beilei, he can always turn to him for help. Manager Liu arrives at the Yao house, demanding the return of the 20 million that the Song family owes to the Sens. If they don't have enough money, they can mortgage their jewelry store to pay off the debt. Mrs. Song is outraged by such demands, but the man reminds her that due to the old age of the head of the family, Qin makes the decision. Since John had offended him at the banquet, he now decided to target the Yao family for revenge. Even though her boyfriend has the mayor's respect, he remains just a poor man with no influence. The blonde asks if there is any way to smooth things over and avoid further trouble. Manager Liu replies that the only way out is marriage between Yao and Qin, otherwise they will not escape retribution. An indignant girl appears, begging her mother not to allow such a turn of events in their family. The father supports his daughter, reminding his wife that she has no right to destroy the family for the sake of a career. But the woman does not listen to him, slaps the man, and accuses him of failure in life. At this moment, John bursts into the room, irritated, and declaring that he will not allow this marriage to happen. Manager Liu rushes at the young man with threats, but he breaks his husband's fingers with cold calm. The subordinates rush to help their boss, but within moments, they are lying unconscious on the floor. John leans over to Liu, telling him to get out and tell Tsin that he's messed with the wrong person. Yao throws herself into the boy's arms, crying and confessing how much she was scared for him. Sun asks John to let his daughter go, because of his recklessness, they could lose the jewelry store. The young man offers to buy the business, promising to transfer ownership rights to Yao herself over time. The blonde laughs at him, noting that such a beggar will never collect the required amount. Having heard the price, John calmly promises to find the money in just 2 days, no more. Aunt Yao laughs at this, not believing that he is even capable of getting even 20,000. Despite this, Lady Song agrees to give him a certain amount of time, on the condition that he promises that otherwise he will leave Yao's life. John agrees without hesitation, confident in his abilities, and then decisively leaves the house. While walking down the street, he calls Elder Xia on the phone, asking for any information about Price. The old man replies that he met him once when his grandfather was still the head of the family. When asked why John needs this information, the young man sullenly remarks that he no longer wants to see this family in the city. The elder has a criminal case against Senya, but it is large and very sensitive, so he asks to meet in person. The guy agrees, promising to arrive soon to discuss everything in private. Meanwhile, Qin himself calls Ms. Song on the phone, indignantly asking why his people were beaten. The woman quickly explains the situation to him, after which the young gentleman gradually calms down. He is confident that in 2 days he will personally destroy John, showing him who is a real man and who is a dog. At the Xia family home, the elder hands over the evidence of the crimes committed by Sen to the young man for detailed examination. After looking through the documents, the guy is shocked and does not understand why the old man has not yet handed over the new moon to the authorities. The problem is that the case involves many influential people, which the Xia family cannot compare with. John is aware of the complexity of the situation and wonders how exactly he should act in this situation. He asks if the mayor of Yun City is involved in all these dirty deeds and whether he can be trusted. Although the elder did not often cross paths with him, he does not believe that he has anything to do with it because he seems honest. This pleases John, because such an ally will be enough to finally remove Sen from the road. 2 days later, a worried son asks her daughter where her boyfriend is and why he is still not here. Sen scoffs, confident that John has escaped and victory is practically in his grasp. Yao is worried about the boy, wondering if something bad has happened, trying to calm himself down. It is at this moment that John appears, apologizing for being late and his temporary absence. The girl happily rushes to him, quarreling because he disappeared and did not get in touch. Sen is furious at the guy's appearance, but is still confident that she can easily humiliate him. He turns to John mockingly, expressing surprise that he did not flee the battlefield. The young man remains calm and asks her to sign a document, stating that after the payment, the store will be transferred to Yao. The girl's aunt intervenes in the conversation, demanding that he stop making fun of her and hand over the money. John leisurely takes out his phone and sends a message to Elder Xia asking him to make the transfer. The son orders his subordinates to immediately check whether the money has actually already been deposited into the account. Everyone is waiting with bated breath, trying to figure out if the guy really managed to get such a large sum. Finally, the legend is officially confirmed, causing a real shock to everyone present in the room. John takes out the pre-prepared documents and asks that they be signed without delay. He nudges Senya, who, without reading, complies with the demand, presenting his seal. The women from the Song family instantly change their attitude, starting to flatter the guy. John angrily grabs the blonde's hand, warning her not to play with Yao's feelings anymore. After she promises that something like this will not happen again, he leads the girl to the exit. But before they can leave, Qin calls out to them, declaring that he will not let them go so easily. Turning around, John is amazed to see Xiao, with whom he had recently had to clash in battle. Along with him comes a man named Zhao, the curator of the martial arts pavilion. He speaks dismissively of the guy, considering him just another worthless upstart. Xiao warns his teacher, emphasizing that John is not as simple as he seems. Tsen reassures his cousin, confident that Zhao is a master of ancient arts who has no equal. Yao comes to his boyfriend's defense, reminding him that he did everything as agreed. Song supports his daughter's words, but the young master is completely indifferent to this. He wants John to kneel before him, apologize, and leave town forever. The young man calmly steps forward, has no intention of retreating, and is confident in his own strength. Xiao advises him to submit, because even the strongest cannot compare to Master Zhao. John replies that he does not see the man as a worthy opponent and challenges all three of them together. Irritated by what he heard, The teacher rushes forward, intending to teach the impudent one a lesson. But the young man easily repels the attack, throwing his opponent back with one movement. The husband realizes that before him is a great master, whose ki is incredibly strong and dangerous. He didn't expect that at such a young age, someone could possess such amazing strength. Ms. Song asks Yao who her boyfriend is, as he looks less and less like an ordinary student. At this point, Zhao offers to resolve the conflict peacefully and even invites them to join his pavilion. John scoffs at the fact that the man in front of him is eager to take him on as an apprentice. The teacher notes that the young man has only reached the initial level of a great master, while he is much higher. He notes that although there is only one level between them, the difference is still colossal. But John not only possesses the power of a great master, he still has something to truly surprise with. The guy quickly rushes forward, striking Zhao, who barely manages to block it. The man looks at the aura of a true martial artist in shock, not believing his eyes. The young man does not give him time to come to his senses, already approaching to attack with renewed vigor. With just the back of his hand, John knocks his opponent to the cold ground. Not wanting to give up so easily, Zhao goes on the attack, but can't even touch the guy. Realizing the hopelessness of the situation, he orders his students to run away immediately. But John is not going to let them go. Using his new ability and weaving red strings, a person tries to break the bonds, convincing himself that these are only fragile threads that can be easily broken. He is not succeeding, and John advises him not to waste his energy on fruitless attempts. Eventually, Zhao realizes that these strings are sucking out their souls, robbing them of their last strength. In a fit of rage, the young man is ready to kill all three and send them straight to hell. But it was at this moment that Yao intervened, calming him down and begging him to let his opponents go. John replies that these people do not deserve mercy, but still recall their equipment. At that moment, police cars pull up, and the officer coming out asks about Sen's whereabouts. The young gentleman responds, convinced that they will now help him by accusing him of attempted murder. But the man ignores his words, presenting an arrest warrant for bribery of officials and sex trafficking. Earlier, John brought to the mayor all the evidence he had received from Elder Xia without hesitating for a moment. He reacted sharply, promising to bring to justice everyone involved in the crimes. San panics, demanding to be taken to the chief of police immediately. But this is impossible. The officer informs that the young master should not count on his friends. They are all under investigation. Price is handcuffed and begins to beg to be allowed to call a lawyer. Xiao watches this in shock and asks his uncle what they should do in this situation. Zhao advises them to get out as quickly as possible, while they still have at least some chance to escape. Noticing their escape, John allows them to leave, but warns them that next time, there will be no chance. The young man returns to his dorm, where Hao is already waiting for him, saying that he was going to go look for him. It turns out that the girl he was courting, Lin, accepted his advances, so they throw a party. John doesn't share his friend's joy, because in his past life, it was at this party that both of his legs were broken. Since then, he has spent his entire life in a wheelchair, but now he does not intend to allow a repeat of the tragedy. Two friends arrive at the club, where Lin and her cheerful group of friends are already waiting for them. The girl pulls Hao towards her and kisses him, causing him to feel embarrassed and slightly confused. One of her acquaintances, Shu, recognizes John as the university's leading visually impaired person and is interested in his appearance. Hao comes to his comrade's defense, saying that even Xiao was defeated by him in a duel. They don't believe him, which irritates the guy incredibly, but John advises him not to pay any attention to it. Having made peace, he changes the subject and gives Lin a pendant, which is supposed to be a gift in memory. The girl is fascinated by the decoration, assuming that it is worth tens of thousands of yuan. Her friend whispers enviously that Lin has always had a good sense of smell for rich guys. At this moment, a criminal-looking man named Chuck and his gang approach the table. He grabs Lin by the hand, trying to drag her away from the company. Hao intervenes, punching Chuck, causing him to fly into a table and scatter bottles around. The man, in anger, orders his henchmen to teach the guy a lesson and give him a good beating. The students watch this from the sidelines with fear, not daring to intervene in the fight. After all, this gang has power over the area, and no one wants to get into trouble. Lynn indifferently notes that it is not her concern because she did not ask anyone to protect her. John, hearing this, is disappointed, although he knew from the beginning that everything would happen exactly this way. He rushes into the thick of the fight, dealing a powerful blow from behind to one of his opponents. The young man raises his friend, reproaching him for his poor choice of company and short-sightedness. Chuck tries to hit John over the head with a bottle, threatening to break his arms and legs. The guy knocks his opponent off his feet with a wide swing, sending him flying far to the side. The girls watch the events with delight, discussing how John turned out to be not such a loser. Lynn runs up to her friends, calling out to Hao, but clings to John, holding on to him. The young man is not going to tolerate this, grabs the girl by the neck, and tells her about events from her past life. He promises retribution, intending to make him go through the same thing that his friend had to go through. But Hao stops him, trying to prevent the guy from taking another cruel step. John doesn't listen and uses spiritual energy to break Lynn's knees, condemning her to 6 months of disability. At that moment, his phone rings, and on the other end, Hans reports new troubles. There's an attack at the Xian Martial Arts School, and Elder Xia says only John can help. The boy hears the name of the school and declares that it is headed by Anna, an old acquaintance of his. He goes, asking Hao to return home on his own because he has urgent business. A huge crowd gathered on the grounds of the Xian School. Students of the school and invaders from Dingfang. Anna strives for a peaceful resolution to the conflict, not wanting to start a fight in order to maintain harmony. But the other side disagrees, and the leader of Dingfang declares that only under his rule will martial arts be revived. Unwilling to tolerate such insolence, Anna challenges her opponent to a fair fight. But the man replies that this time a foreign assistant named Chuan will fight in his place. It is said that this fighter has defeated many martial artists without losing in the last 2 days. Moreover, according to rumors, each of them was overthrown by just one blow from a foreigner. Anna didn't expect her opponent to be so young. He looked to be in his early 30s. The head of Dingfang suggests that the woman attack first, otherwise Chuan's victory will be instant. Fox, the class monitor where John studies, steps forward, wanting to engage in battle with the alien. But Anna stops her, intending to deal with the uninvited guest on her territory herself. The woman takes a fighting stance, preparing to deliver her most powerful blow, the Crimson Fist. The audience is surprised, not expecting her to use a powerful move early in the fight. However, despite her immense strength and developed chi, Chuan easily blocks her opponent's attack. He freezes her hand, immobilizing her body, preventing her from moving or dodging. Mocking her skill, he doesn't consider this fight worthy or even slightly difficult for himself. He creates an ice spear, intending to impale Anna and take over her school by force. But at the last moment, John intercepts his weapon, darkly asking if Chuan knows his father, Hai Wei. The head of Dingfang recognizes the guy as the same one who thwarted his plans during the previous incident. The stranger ignores the young man's questions, mocking him for still being no match for him even after his defeat. An irritated John asks about his father again, summoning red strings around him. In the past, 3 people attacked their family, using summoning ice to surround her head. They demanded that something be handed over to them, but the man sincerely did not understand what was being discussed. He ordered his wife to grab John and run away while he distracted the enemies. The woman grabbed her son by the hand and did as the man ordered, quickly leaving the scene. The last thing the young man saw was his father being attacked by enemies, raising icy swords. Finally, Chuan replies that he has no idea who John is talking about and advises him to think about himself. Ice begins to cover the boy's hand, freezing him so that he cannot escape the battlefield. Hans brings Elder Xia, concerned for the safety of both Anna and John himself. The old man reassures his subordinate, confident that the young man can cope without outside help. It turns out to be true. The guy breaks the icy bonds and grabs Anna in his arms. He jumps back, handing the woman over to the elder to be cared for in a safe place. He himself returns to Chuan, because this is the first worthy opponent in his new life. He lunges at the stranger who is serious and makes no secret of his intention to kill John. The young man manages to block the attack with an ice blade, surprising the enemy again. Anna asks Zia who this guy is, whose strength seems so incredible. Hans explains that he is a martial artist, whom his master recently befriended. Meanwhile, John takes the initiative in the fight, delivering his powerful blow. Chuan creates an ice armor around himself, confident that it will withstand any pressure. However, as soon as the young man's fist touches the protection, deep cracks appear on it. The stranger chokes on blood and falls to his knees, and John prepares to interrogate him. He uses the soul domination technique, penetrating deep into Chuan's mind. This shocks Chief Dingfang, who cannot understand where such a strong master came from. Elder Xia intervenes, asking the guy what is happening and why he looks so angry. He explains that the man in front of him is connected to those who once harmed his father. Then the old man shares that the day before, he personally visited John's house and discovered the connection between the attackers and him. The girl Leah, whom John tried to protect, actually also belongs to this family. Everything was planned from the very beginning to get to his father through the boy. The young man creates a sound barrier around himself, the elder and Chuan, isolating them from those present. He again asks the stranger if he is familiar with his father's name, Dean, but hears another objection. Then John demands that Chuan tell him everything he knows about those who sent him. The man explains that it was a small group known as the Nine Ghosts that was causing the Jia reaction. The elder explains that this is an ancient society of assassins that has existed for several centuries. The era of terror of 9 murderers lasted until the 3rd decade of the last century. The political leaders of many states were destroyed, causing chaos and rage among the people. The most powerful ancient warriors were gathered to destroy the group, but all disappeared without a trace. John demands that Chuan reveal the location of the 9 assassins' headquarters and the reason for the attack. However, the man's mouth remains silent, and even the dominance of reason has no effect on him. The foreigner begins to scream in pain, falls on his back, and the young man realizes that his consciousness has been blocked. Chuan rushes forward in a rage, pleading not to be killed, and the elder tries to follow him. John stops the old man, explaining that there is no point in pursuing him, because he has completely gone mad. Anna approaches, thanking for the rescue and help, promising that her school will never forget the kindness. The guy kindly offers to contact him at any time, because in a past life, she sheltered him in trouble. In this life, he intends to repay the debt and thank him in this way, without going back on his word. After this, the young man turns his attention to the Dingfang clan, asking the elder to settle the situation with them. He wants to never see them again in the city he calls his home. John leaves, and Anna, looking thoughtfully after him, cannot shake off the feeling of déjà vu. But she has little time to think, because a brawl breaks out during which the invaders are punished. As John walks through the city streets, he reflects that someone has been deliberately hunting his family from the very beginning. He assumes that there is something that his parents did not tell him about, and that he still does not know about. However, regardless of the secrets, he intends to destroy the 9 killers with his own hands. The next day, Hao meets him near the university, asking when his friend managed to return. Suddenly, Fox runs up to John in the corridor, thanks to his rescue of the craftswoman Anna and her school. The friend is surprised that the young man managed to win over not only the campus beauty, but now even the class president can't take his eyes off her. Shen, the son of the chairman of the Dongsheng group and an admirer of Lesia, appears from the office and demands that John let the girl go. The class president awkwardly steps aside, but Shen doesn't stop, accusing John of making advances towards female students. Lisa comes to the guy's defense, ordering her fan not to interfere in her affairs, because he is nobody to her. An argument ensues, during which Shen mistakenly assumes that John and Lisa are dating. He begins to insult the young man, declaring that he has neither money nor looks, nor a decent character. In their past life, they never communicated, because it seemed they were from different worlds and layers. The fan pushes the guy, and Hao comes to his friend's defense, although before he always ran away when Shen appeared. The headman pulls John into the office, advising him to ignore such distractions. The lesson begins, and the teacher announces that he has good news for the whole class. The students begin to whisper among themselves, wondering if one of them has received another award. Assuming it is Shen, It's about him, but this time they'll discuss the benefits he provided to those in need. A fan comes out in front of everyone and tells them what they have learned about John's father's disability. In this regard, Shen proposes to allocate 30,000 to his family and provide a priority quota. Hao asks his friend if he is going to accept the money. The teacher calls John over to publicly thank Shenyu for her generosity and concern. However, the young man refuses to do this, stating that such a sum is too insignificant and uninteresting for him. Everyone starts to laugh at him, considering it stupid pride, but only Lisa suggests that the master might have enough money. The headman's fan is angry at this answer, but does not have time to object in response. Suddenly John's phone rings and he answers it without hesitation right in the middle of class. It's Elder Xia, who announces a grand auction and asks if he plans to attend. At first John refuses, but the old man says that there will be more than just antiques there. He heard from a close friend that a mysterious magical weapon would be on display this time. This changes the young man's decision, and he agrees to come to the event without any further doubt. After finishing the conversation, John tells Hao that he will take him with him to the auction tomorrow. Hearing these words, Shen begins to mock him, confident that he will be kicked out at the entrance. The young man doesn't lose his composure and asks if Shen himself is afraid of finding himself in the same situation. This provokes the fan, and he promises to personally prove his case at the event itself. In the evening, all the most influential people in the city gather together to discuss the upcoming auction. A group of teenagers assume among themselves that John will not come because it is very dear to him. Shen appears, and everyone immediately starts flattering him, seeking affection and attention. At this time, John and his friend approach the entrance, causing surprise among those around them. Hao is nervous, not believing that they are actually going to attend such a prestigious auction. The young man approaches two guards, who ask him to show an invitation to enter. He doesn't have an invitation, but he explains that Elder Xia personally invited him. At first, one of the men refuses him, insisting that entry is permitted only with passes. But the second one stops him, reminding him that they were informed about a very important guest without formalities. They apologize and bow to John, after which they allow him inside without any problems. When he and his friend enter the room, it immediately throws Shen off balance. Lisa approaches John, greeting him, while Hao laughs at the chief's fan. Shen can't believe they made it through, but John's friend says he always finds a way. So the opponent decides that they entered illegally in order to save face in front of others. He calls security, pointing at the guys and claiming that they don't have invitations, demanding that they be thrown out. The headman intervenes, suggesting that the boys really could have slipped in unnoticed. Shen agrees to leave things as they are if John bows to him right now in front of everyone. The young man responds only with mockery, thereby provoking his opponent to take action. The fan calls the security guards again, ordering them to expel the violators from the auction immediately. When one of the men tries to move John, he is unable to do so. Shen also begins to push the guy, not understanding how such a seemingly weakling can stand so firmly. He calls the other bodyguards, ordering them to help and finally drive the guy out. But even together, they are unable to move the motionless young man without making any effort. Feng arrives at the scene of the fight and kicks one of the bodyguards in the face, scolding him for daring to touch her master. Afterwards, she bows to John, reminding him that he still hasn't fulfilled his promise to train him. A stunned Shen recognizes the girl as Elder Xia's grandson and decides that some unfortunate mistake has occurred. He asks if her servant offended her. Since she hit him so rudely in the face in front of everyone, Fen turns an irritated gaze to the fan, asking if it was his people who showed contempt for the master. Shen finally realizes that she is talking about John and doesn't believe what she is hearing. Lisa confirms the girl's words, noting that the young man's strength truly deserves respect. Despite the testimony of others, Shen cannot accept that the guy known as a coward is a martial artist. He again insists that John has entered the auction illegally and must be thrown out. Feng just laughs at him, emphasizing that he is a nobody here and has no power at this event. At this moment, a man approaches the company, Shen Tang's father, who is also the general manager. He completely ignores his son, approaches the teenagers and asks which of them is Elder Shia's guest. When John is pointed out to him, he is surprised at how young and yet confident he is. Tan swings his arm and slaps his son, scolding him for his insolence and disrespect. It was this manager who instructed the guards to allow John to pass without any passes. Finally, the fan realizes that everyone around him now recognizes John as a great master. Having quenched his ardor, he apologizes to the young man whom he had recently mercilessly humiliated. The father also apologizes to John for his son, but he does not intend to simply forget the situation. He is willing to forgive Shen only on the condition that he immediately leaves the auction premises. This causes another wave of indignation, but Tan stops his son, ordering him to leave the hall. Distracted from the events, John asks Feng where her grandfather is, since he promised to come to the event. She explains that Elder Xia will appear a little later because all the noble families of the city will gather today. Lisa listens to their conversation in silence, regretting that she did not recognize the strength in this young man earlier. Finally, the event begins and guests are invited into the exhibition hall. As they enter, Hao expresses his admiration for John and is glad that Shen will no longer insult them. The room they found themselves in turned out to be very large and filled with food boxes. Each exhibit there has great value and, accordingly, a high price. John looks around with interest, trying to find something really interesting among the antiques. His friend decides to walk around the area on his own, wanting to examine everything more closely. The young man invites Hao to choose anything he likes, promising to definitely buy it. Fen notices the crowd near one of the stands, assuming that there is a real treasure there. On display is a short sword that, according to legend, was used by King Gao during the spring and autumn period. According to the worker, the sword not only looks archaic and elegant, but is also incredibly sharp. The blade of this product is capable of cutting iron like soft butter. A man named Hans asks permission to examine the sword more closely and is not refused. Looking at the weapon, he doubts its sharpness because the blade seems rather fragile. He asks to show how dangerous the blade is, and an iron block is brought into the hall. The worker cuts off a piece of metal with one blow, after which he offers everyone the opportunity to verify the sword's authenticity. A satisfied Hans makes a bid, wanting to buy the weapon, and sets the starting price at 20 million. People around are shocked by such a low price for an item considered a priceless treasure. However, no one dares to outbid the young master, fearing the wrath of his influential family. At this point, John intervenes in the bidding, raising the bid and offering 30 million. Those present begin to whisper, trying to figure out who this young man is, recognizing only his companion. Hans also notices Feng, and a tense standoff immediately ensues between the two. The girl introduces John, explaining that before them is the youngest martial artist in the city. Thanks to the recent event at Anna's school, his fame began to spread rapidly among all classes. Hans's subordinates step forward, declaring that their master is the youngest master of ancient combat. The young man himself asks if John really decided to steal the short royal sword from him. The guy replies that he just needs a weapon, and this sword suits him perfectly. Hans accepts the answer and proposes to extend the auction according to the established rules. The rate rises sharply and already reaches 50 million, attracting even more attention. John calmly raises the amount to 60 million without showing any excitement at all. Even for a noble family, such a sum is astonishing, and the audience wonders where he got this money from. The young man himself does not consider money to be something important. He is confident that he can always earn it again. An irritated Hans is not going to back down and raises the bet to 80 million. This causes concern among his servants, since such a sum requires the permission of the head of the family. Fen whispers to John that, to get an even higher bid, they would have to sell the martial arts school. Suddenly, one of the people present accidentally drops a sword on the floor from behind, causing a slight commotion. John notices this and asks permission to look at the nondescript weapon, sensing its spiritual energy. Feng wonders why he suddenly decided to change the sword, since the current one looks completely incomprehensible. The young man explains that this weapon is much better, activates his chi, and opens the sealed spell. This is the first time since he returned to this world that he sees such a seal, which causes him delight. He immediately declares that he will buy this particular weapon, forgetting about the previous artifact. Its value is 3 million, and the girl suggests that he think it over again. But John doesn't take her words into account and hands the auction worker a card from Elder Shia. The payment is successful, and the young man plans to remove the seal at home to explore the spiritual energy. Meanwhile, Hans is informed that he has won the auction, the final bid being 80 million. The young gentleman suggests that John was deliberately raising the price, provoking reckless spending. If his father finds out about the amount spent, he will obviously punish him harshly again. Another influential figure in the city, the only absolute master Un, arrives at the auction. Elder Xia appears with him, greets his granddaughter, and Anna also joins Lesia. All the participants exchange congratulations, and John gets to know Un, sensing his powerful aura. The man's aura is much stronger than anyone John has met before, commanding his respect. However, he notes that the master appears to be only half finished, which is surprising. John's silence irritates Hans, who accuses him of disrespecting his venerable grandfather. Elder Xia intervenes in the situation, calling for more respect for young John. Meanwhile, Un himself is carefully studying John, suggesting that the young man is deliberately hiding his true strength, not wanting to show it. Hans speaks dismissively of Xia, convinced that he cannot compare to his grandfather. The elder's grandson stands up for him, which causes a small argument to break out between them. Un calms his grandson, ordering him to behave with restraint in the presence of respected persons. At this moment, a man in a wheelchair, known as Sam, the richest man in the city, appears in the hall. He owns all the exhibits in the exhibition, and he presses a button, activating a special pedestal. It contains a disc of 8 trigrams, which contains a mysterious and dangerous power. Anyone who comes closer than half a meter is immediately subjected to an invisible magical attack. The collector invited many masters, but none of them managed to uncover the secret of the artifact. Master Tao comes forward, hypothesizing that the disc contains a concentration of evil magical forces. He reaches out to the object, ignoring the warning about the danger of approaching the artifact. Suddenly, lightning appears, striking the man's body for his overconfidence. A burned Tao falls to the floor, and a medic immediately runs to him to provide the necessary assistance. Observing everything, John notes that although the disc has power, it is not able to maintain its effect for long. Sam shares that this artifact has been in his collection for a long time, remaining unsolved. Therefore, whoever can break the seal will receive the 8 trigram disc into his possession. Hans decides to give it a try, surrounding himself with a powerful aura, striking the watching Elder Xia. He had already reached a late stage of development, and Feng was not yet experienced enough to compare with him. When the young master reaches out to the artifact, it activates again, preparing to strike with lightning. Hans is unable to move, but his grandfather protects him by deflecting the blow with his strength. John realizes that the disc draws energy from the trigrams of heaven and earth, forming a spiritual cluster. Un orders his grandson to forget about the seal, as there are more important things to do at this time. Sam looks upset because even the absolute grandmaster couldn't break the spell. John volunteers to try, which draws the ridicule of Hans, determined to defeat the enemy. He is convinced that the guy will instantly burn to death, and only a charred corpse will remain behind him. But the young man confidently declares that in another world, he was a king who ruled more than 10,000 times. Such a small array is no problem for him, and he begins to absorb the energy hidden inside. Finally, the disc falls to the ground, stopping levitating, causing surprise among everyone present. John explains that at the very center of the yin and yang poles is the core of this magical array. Those present were shocked, not believing that the removal of the seal could have happened so simply and quickly. Master Un warily considers that if John cannot be used, he must be destroyed. The young man carefully examines the artifact, realizing that it will break after just a few uses, beyond his power. Sam approaches him, asking him to touch the disc, something he hasn't done since acquiring it. The man looks extremely moved, which surprises John, as he created dozens of these in his past life. Eventually, the collector, keeping his promise, hands the disc over to the guy who accepts it unarmed. Everyone congratulates the young man on receiving the unique artifact, but the elder advises him to go home. Before they leave, Hans stops everyone, announcing that he has important news to share. He confidently proclaims that now all clans and schools of martial arts will unite under the leadership of Una. Anna is the first to express doubt, reminding that each school has its own peculiarities and does not strive for any union. Xia supports her, noting that there was once a man who tried to do something similar without success. Un says that without uniting, the Nine Assassins organization will approach the city gates, and there will be trouble. The assembled people begin to whisper, having no idea who these mysterious 9 are that the master is talking about. John makes a guess, suggesting that Un is simply scaring everyone in order to seize power over all the schools. He tensely asks the elder if he told him about the murderers, but he denies everything. Hans ignores the noise as he calls the vote, asking who is in favor and who is against. The head of the martial arts school, Xiaowu, refuses to join, but is immediately slapped. Hans shows disdain, believing that such an insignificant man has no right to express his opinion. Anna immediately stands up for the victim, trying to persuade the young master to behave more restrainedly. John intervenes again, agreeing that the idea of an alliance is a good one, but asking questions. He wonders why Un should lead the union when other leadership options could be considered. Hans answers for her husband, emphasizing that his grandfather is the only absolute master in this city. Fen retorts irritably, reminding him that John is also a great master and has even greater power than Un. The young gentleman presses again, claiming that no one knows the young man, but his grandfather is respected by the whole city. People around her agree with each other, but the girl does not give in, insisting on her opinion to the end. In fact, she wants John to fight Ung in combat to test his skill level. Hans suggests that John measure his strength against him first, but he refuses, considering it unnecessary. He explains that Hans is not a worthy opponent for him, so there is no point in wasting his energy on a duel. Unable to bear such words, the young gentleman attacks with incredible speed, not hiding his anger. But even despite the suddenness of the attack, John easily intercepts his fist and stops the blow without difficulty. This amazes everyone present, and they begin to look more closely at the young fighter, assessing his level. Hans refuses to give up, trying again and again to strike his opponent in front of everyone. John easily dodges every attack, showing no strain or effort during the fight. He indifferently remarks that this is too simple, suggesting that his grandfather go out to the duel instead of his grandson. An irritated Hans takes out a Life Eater pill and swallows it immediately without a moment's hesitation. Although it instantly increases the cultivation level, it is very harmful to the body and may lead to consequences. Over the past 10 years, the young master has never lost to someone of his age. John shows more interest, not expecting that such a pill for fighters exists in this world. Hans begins to throw a lot of fast punches, which John has to block with concentration. Hao is worried, afraid that his comrade might not cope. He becomes afraid of his fate. The enemy's fist is already flying straight at John, aiming to deliver the final crushing blow. But John does nothing except simply hold his hand out in front of him without moving. The 7 wounded fists technique that Hans uses is extremely powerful, and Un believes that it will cripple John. However, a moment later, it is his grandson who suffers. He flies back with a wounded arm and torn clothes. The man barely manages to catch Hans, noticing with horror that all the bones in the boy's arm are broken. At the same time, his opponent remains completely unharmed, without a single scratch or dent on his body. Master Un decides to personally kill John and avenge his family's honor, no matter what. His power is truly frightening. It takes on a physical form, and even standing next to him is difficult. John barely manages to dodge the attack, but the enemy appears behind him, preparing another blow. The guy flies far forward, smashing his body through the stone columns that stood along the walls of the hall. Feng is worried, but Elder Xia assures her that John is not the type to go down after one blow. The young man actually gets up as if nothing had happened. Only a little battered and with blood on his face, Un admits that the guy is indeed strong, but declares that he will still take his life. This time, John blocks the blow, transforming his energy into the form of a powerful bird in the air. Their fight now turns into a real duel between two great masters who come face to face. They rush at each other, and the guy launches an attack that the enemy barely avoids, realizing John's advantage. His aura is weakened by a whole level, and the young man promises to show the power of a true great master. He channels internal energy that takes shape and comes out, capable of destroying Una. As the clouds of dust gradually settle, everyone sees that the man, although alive, is badly injured. Hans is worried about his grandfather's condition, while Feng does not hide his joy at John's victory. The young man approaches the enemy and coldly declares that it is now better for their family to leave the city. Hans starts acting overconfident again, but Un immediately puts him in his place. The man bows before John, sincerely apologizes, and promises to personally support the guy if he forgives their family. But John mockingly asks why he needs support from a defeated man. Elder Xia and Anna intervene in the conversation. They support John's candidacy as the head of the future alliance. None of those present dare to challenge his authority, so the others also recognize him as the leader. However, John makes an announcement. He admits that he is too young to lead such a powerful organization. Therefore, he appoints Elder Xia as the acting head of the alliance. Master Un steps forward again, now insisting on his family's expulsion from the city. He swears that they will always obey John. Realizing that they will not be able to leave without casualties, the man offers to reveal the secret of how he managed to reach the level of a great master so quickly. He talks about a place where a huge amount of spiritual energy is concentrated, the Cave of Bliss. Calling one of his subordinates, Un orders that a helicopter be prepared immediately to go there right now. Hans tries to stop him, reminding him that it is a family secret. But his grandfather has already made his final decision. Elder Xia is worried that this might be a ploy to lure John into a trap. However, the young man still agrees to go into the cave to find out if it will really amaze him. In half an hour, they reach the desired location, which is only accessible by helicopter through a magnetic field. The group then boards the yacht, and John gradually realizes that they were not trying to deceive him. He feels a powerful energy gathering around him, filling the air with spiritual power. Elder Xia wonders why the surrounding fog is becoming increasingly dense and impenetrable. He hesitantly explains that this is a characteristic of the area. Moisture increases at low temperatures. Suddenly, in the middle of the lake, a man jumps into the water, leaving the others without any explanation. When the elder is about to follow, John stops him, holding him back from taking a rash step. He explains that it is a fog spell and that moving around without knowledge of the local waters can be unsafe. The young man convinces his companions that the great master will not be able to sail far, even if he wants to. Un himself navigates underwater, using stones placed on the bottom to find the hidden exit. Another half hour passes, and the group still hasn't found a way to escape the trap around them. But John reassures everyone because he has figured out how the array works and knows how to neutralize it. This spell initially misled him, but now it is clear that it is enough to destroy its source. Jumping high into the air, the young man shoots a beam of energy into the center of the lake, revealing the seal. He destroys it with an explosion, after which the thick fog gradually begins to dissipate around it. Fen, noticing the island ahead, happily points to it, glad that they have achieved their goal. Having reached the shore, everyone feels a powerful flow of spiritual power coming from underground. Moving a little further, they find Una, who does not hide his surprise at their rescue. Elder Xia tries to attack him, but the man fights off the attack and runs away again. To prevent him from running far, John entangles his body with energy threads. The young man reminds that he gave her a chance to survive, but now there is no point in begging for mercy. He tightens the strings, killing the man in front of everyone, leaving no hope. Xia, shocked and frightened, is glad that he has not made an enemy in John. Suddenly, Fen falls to her knees and begs to be taken as an apprentice, ready to fulfill any request. She promises to never leave him and to be by his side, following his every command without objection. However, the young man refuses, explaining that the girl does not yet deserve to take this place. The old man stands up for his granddaughter, convincing her that a few pieces of advice from John will not be in vain. The young man does not change his mind, but puts forward a condition that Fen must fulfill in order to be trained. He imparts to her the technique of burning execution of 9 turns, which the girl must master on her own. If she succeeds, he will agree to impart further knowledge to her and guide her. This technique is not the best, but in a world where spiritual energy is lacking, it is very effective. Having finished this, John recommends that his companions practice for a while he himself goes to meditate. During the process of meditation, the young man discovers that a large amount of energy is escaping from the crystals underground. Such stones are rare even in the world of cultivation, although samples of not the highest quality have been found. He was lucky that the chaos energy protected the foundation, otherwise the excess chi would have killed him. After 7 days, John finally reaches the first level of Immortal King cultivation. There is very little time left until the second level, and now he has already caught up with the best masters. The boy remembers the sword he bought at auction and decides to explore its spiritual essence. After breaking the seal, he sees the sword embryo, the original form of a spiritual cultivation weapon. Such items are divided by quality: low, average, high, excellent, and legendary. He gets an excellent quality, and the young man immediately catches the creature before it runs away. Even in the world of cultivation, such creatures are in short supply, but on Earth, they are a true miracle. This is only the initial form of the flying sword, and special materials are needed to improve it. The young man plans to visit the Great Masters Exchange to find everything he needs for his development. Returning to Elder Xia and her granddaughter, he sees that the girl is mastering the knowledge she received. Her element is fire, so she masters the technique of the burning punishment of 9 turns quite easily. The old man also breaks through the limits of the master, becoming stronger in just 2 days of continuous training. They are grateful to John for taking them to the island and sharing valuable advice. The group is already preparing to leave when a man suddenly appears and calls them thieves. He runs quickly across the surface of the water, amazing the girl Feng with his skill. Elder Xia recognizes the stranger as Meng Tian, one of the most powerful masters of another city. This fighter has almost reached the pinnacle of Grandmaster level and does not tolerate outsiders on the island. Meng Tian angrily asks what they are doing on the island that belongs to him personally. The elder tries to settle everything peacefully, but Meng Tian's reaction is too aggressive and harsh. He gives them 5 minutes to leave, otherwise he will kill them without hesitation or regret. The old man is confused, because although John is with them, he only recently became a great master. He fears that the young man may not be able to withstand a confrontation with such a strong and experienced opponent. But John confidently steps forward and delivers the ultimatum himself, without wasting a single moment. He demands that Meng Tian disappear within 2 minutes, otherwise his throat will be slit right here. The husband comes closer, recognizing in the guy the young master everyone is talking about. He doesn't like that the young man is so self-confident at his age, so he wants to teach him a lesson. He attacks, but John, barely moving, instantly deflects his hand with a blow. The guy laughs at the enemy, considering him too weak, which only increases his rage. Meng Tian rushes at John again, and the two engage in a full-blown battle with a clash of auras. But the young man easily pushes him away again, and he crashes into the trees, breaking several trunks. Meng Tian is stunned by the display of such force, but even now he does not intend to retreat. From his bosom, he takes out a disc that begins to glow, promising a quick and inevitable death. This is Meng Tian's greatest secret, an artifact that once cut the great master into small pieces. Unfortunately, it can only be used once every 6 months, which limits the owner's power. Otherwise, the husband's family would have long ago surpassed all the most influential and famous families of this world. Even dying from such an object can be considered an exceptional honor among the masters. Meng Tian fires an energy beam at John, but he stands still and doesn't dodge. When the rays disappear and the smoke clears, there is no trace left of the guy. The enemy decides that he has turned to ashes, regretting that he could not subjugate him. Suddenly, a young man's voice is heard behind him. He is completely unharmed and uninjured. John pulls out his 8 trigrams disc and releases a powerful bolt of lightning at his opponent. A stunned Meng Tian falls to the ground and coughs up blood as he is slowly surrounded. However, The man does not seem to tremble before death, maintaining his dignity until the end. The guy thinks about it and offers him to swear allegiance in exchange for his life. The elder turns to Metyen, saying that the young man values him highly and therefore does not want to kill him. Eventually, the man submits and bows deeply, swearing to serve John until death. The young man orders the new vassal to rise, after which he approaches Elder Shia. John himself carefully examines the disc, which is cracked and looks slightly damaged. The artifact will probably last a few more uses, but definitely not beyond this limit. John hides the artifact and finally offers to leave the island to continue his business in the city. While crossing the lake on a yacht, the boy approaches Metyen with a request to complete a task. He orders him to go to Yanking City and monitor the Song family for any suspicions. It is necessary to find out whether they have any connections with dangerous or unfamiliar persons. When they land on the shore, the Peakmaster says goodbye and goes off to carry out his errands. At that moment, John's phone rings and his mother's name appears on the screen. The woman asks him to return home immediately because his fiancée has come to visit them. The elder and Feng listen attentively, while the young man himself looks confused and surprised. He doesn't understand when he managed to find a bride, but his mother insists. There is no time for an explanation. As soon as he ends the call, the phone beeps again. This time it's Yao calling. She is concerned about John's long absence and even visited the dorm. There Hao told her that the guy had gone out on business, but did not provide any details. John reassures the girl, promising to meet soon and explain everything in person. Having dealt with the calls, he again turns his attention to Elder Xia standing next to him. He offers to arrange a helicopter for him, and John readily agrees. Before heading home, he picks up Yao to visit his parents with her. The girl is worried because she has never met John's parents in person. The guy calms her down, explaining that he instructed her to hand it over to her family, and they won't mind. Together they board a helicopter and set off to settle all the new misunderstandings. Upon arrival, they are informed that flights over the city are prohibited. They must walk. John doesn't mind because he enjoys walking the streets of his hometown again. Yao asks if they should buy something for their parents, since she didn't have time to cook anything. The young man assures her that there is no need to worry. His parents are very kind and will be glad to see her. Meanwhile, at home, John's father wonders why his wife is so fussed, since it's still early. Suddenly, someone bursts through the door. It's Sai, who came with the girl Qian. He asks his companion if her fiancé really lives here and calls the house pathetic. Qian takes a card out of her purse and hands it to John's confused parents. There's $1 million in it. She also hands them a contract to terminate the engagement and asks them to sign it immediately. This action irritates Dean, but he says nothing, only silently clenching his jaw with tension. His wife responds instead, explaining that the marriage was arranged by their grandfathers. She adds that such a union cannot simply be canceled without good reason on both sides. Sai demands that they stop being so ignorant and finally take the money without arguing. Xian supports him, promising that John's family will not be disgraced by such a refusal. Unable to bear it any longer, the father advises her to stop behaving so insolently and to grow up first. Sai laughs at his disability, causing a wave of anger and pain to appear in the older man's eyes. He reminds that Dean was kicked out of the Xian family, and now he is a nobody, even though he was once a genius. The woman tries to calm the crowd by saying that she has already called John personally. She asks to wait for his arrival before signing any documents. At her words, Sai goes crazy, flips the table over, and grabs Dean, lifting him straight into the air. He threatens to break their hands if they don't sign the contract in front of him immediately. It is at this moment that John appears, an aura of undisguised rage blazing around him. His mother rushes to him with tears, hugging her son tightly after a long separation. The young man also does not hold back his emotions, because he had not seen his parents for a long time and missed them in silence. Xian watches silently from the side, trying to understand her possible groom. He evokes in her a complex, deep and unpredictable feeling that she cannot name. The girl next to him seems extraordinary, deserving special attention. The guy himself turns his attention back to Sai, ordering him to immediately let his father go. He threatens the attacker with death from a single finger, but all he gets in response is laughter. Sai lunges forward, about to strike John, and Dean warns his son of his enemy's skill. To everyone's surprise, the young man easily stops the attack without flinching for a moment in the fight. The next moment, he himself delivers a powerful blow, which significantly harms the opponent. The young man does not finish Sai off, stopping and ordering him to return to his family with a warning. He says that they will face total destruction if they dare to interfere in his affairs again. After this, John approaches Kian, lifts her by the neck, and also tells her to prepare her family. When the girl is released, the couple runs away in panic, frightened by the terrible strength of the young fighter. Sai doesn't lose hope. He's sure that John is strong, but he can't compare to his father. Dean addresses his son, warning him that the head of the Saya family is a great martial arts master. The young man reassures his father, confidently declaring that for him, great masters are like ants. This does not lessen the man's anxiety, and he sadly admits that he cannot be of use because of his injury. Then, John suddenly takes out needles, promising that he can get his father back on his feet. The father has doubts, because many famous doctors have tried acupuncture, but it was all in vain. The guy asks to trust him, and Yao supports him, noting that he has changed lately. She adds that the young man has become much stronger, and this makes a great impression on him. Dean has faced disappointment too many times and doesn't want to go through that again. Despite this, the son insists on his own, laying out the necessary instruments for the procedure on the floor. John's mother also decides to support the boy, pointing out how mature he has become during this time. Eventually, the husband agrees for his wife's sake, allowing the young man to try again. The guy starts by inserting the first needle and asks if his father feels it. He replies that no, because he hasn't felt any pain in his legs for a long time. John channels spiritual energy through the needle, and Dean feels a tingling sensation, almost like numbness. This awakens enthusiasm in him because he begins to notice changes that seemed impossible. The son warns that it will hurt a little further and that he will have to experience some unpleasant sensations. Dean agrees, ready to endure anything, just to regain the ability to walk. After some time, his legs are completely covered in needles and his skin is moistened with sweat. John uses a special set of acupuncture techniques called TIM, which he received in a past life. It's not the best technique, but it's still extremely effective and rare. When the young man finishes, the man rises to his feet with trepidation, feeling having returned to them. Dean asks John where he learned such a skill, and he avoids answering about reincarnation. The father does not insist, but decides to finally reveal the secrets that he has hidden from his son for years. He was once a great master too, as the boy's father was the head of the Jian family back then. Their family was among the top 10 families in the city, occupying an honorable 4th place in those years. Along with his brother Shang, Ding was considered the best representative of the younger generation of martial arts. When they embarked on the path of transformation, they discovered a mysterious and enigmatic realm on Mount Taishan. Now the man realizes that he should not go there, because it was there that he faced mortal danger. Many died, but Dean managed to survive and receive gifts to enhance cultivation back then. Therefore, he became one step higher than Shan, which caused his brother to be deeply envious at that time. His brother slandered him, which led to his expulsion from the family, and the masters began chasing after imaginary treasures. He moved his wife and child to safety, but his pursuers still found him soon after. John, in a rage, vows revenge and destroys the culprits, whoever they may ultimately never be. The young man gives his father a pill that is supposed to cleanse the bone marrow and restore damaged meridians. After taking this pill, Ding will be able to return to cultivation again, just like in the old days. After swallowing the remedy, the man is completely healed, restoring the powers he once possessed. John also gives him the bone marrow cleansing sutra technique to speed up his cultivation. This technique is not very strong compared to others, but is ideal for injured men. Dean tearfully thanks his son for everything he has done for him, which slightly embarrasses the boy. When the emotions subside, the parents turn their attention to Yao and ask to finally introduce her officially. Hearing that this is John's chosen one, his mother warmly congratulates the girl and is sincerely happy about their meeting. She then goes to the kitchen, preparing to host a family reunion dinner at home. The next day, the couple strolls along the familiar streets of the city, reminiscing about their school days with a touch of nostalgia. Suddenly, an expensive car drives past, almost hitting Yao, whom John manages to hug. The car stops, and their former classmate, the self-confident Van, is behind the wheel. He brazenly clings to the couple, and the girl asks John not to pay attention and not to waste his nerves in vain. However, they are blocked in the way, not allowing them to leave, and they begin to laugh at John with particular disdain. Yao warns Wang that if he doesn't hide, her boyfriend will not spare him and will simply destroy him on the spot. This doesn't stop the impudent fellow, so the young man finally intervenes, grabbing the offender by the finger with which he was poking him. But the girl doesn't want to fight, so she pushes Van aside with a force that is unexpected for everyone. A classmate suddenly invites them to celebrate his birthday, which falls today. He explains this by saying that he has supposedly realized his guilt and wants to make amends for it, although in reality, he is trying to embarrass John. Yao intends to refuse, but the young man stops her, agreeing because he wants to take revenge for old humiliations. Getting into the car, Van drives them to the meeting place, asking John to give him a ride to the university along the way. The girl scolds her classmate for being biased, reminding him that they arrived on a private helicopter. Her words are not taken seriously, as they are considered an attempt to protect the guy's dignity with an exaggeration. Meanwhile, the families of Saya and Kian gather together to discuss the threat they received from John. Those present are outraged by such insolence, believing that the young man is simply a self-confident, impudent fellow. One of the men shares the news that the guy's strength has indeed long exceeded the level of a great master. He also relays rumors that Mentian was one of John's defeated opponents. Everyone is surprised, because only a few people have reached this level even on the entire continent. Sai objects, calling this gossip nonsense, since John is his peer and has not yet even reached the level of a master. Xian agrees with this, believing that John will lose as soon as he leaves the house. The girl's head is interrupted by the leader of her clan, Min, who orders her to kneel down and express repentance. He approaches the head of the Saya family, explaining that, according to reliable information, John has already become a mythical master. In this case, even if both families unite, they will not be able to defeat him. Min suggests going to John personally and apologizing for all the mistakes made. However, this idea causes outrage because their families are the best in the city and cannot be humiliated. The head of the family reminds them that their existence is at stake, and the two teenagers should not have touched someone who is not their equal. At this moment, two twin elders enter the hall, the former head of the Song clan named Jushi and the elder Wushun. The whole world knows them as unrivaled, and Ming did not expect to see these legendary masters again. With the Heavenly Bear formation under their control, these two are capable of destroying anyone who opposes them. Wushun reports that John must be brought up to activate their technique. Sai takes on this task, receiving a blessing from the head of his clan. Meanwhile, Van arrives at his birthday party with some unexpected guests. Everyone gathered is surprised to recognize the former beauty of the school, Yao, as well as the loser John. One of the boy's classmates approaches him, asking if he is really in front of them. A scuffle soon broke out between those present, resulting in John pinning Van to the floor. A former classmate begins to threaten, recalling his father, the chief of police. The young man looks down at the prisoner with contempt, mentally calling him a worthless scumbag. He calls over two boys who were watching the scene in shock, ordering one of them to give him the phone. Having received what he needed, John hands the device to Van, allowing him to dial his father's number. As soon as this happens, he begins to sob and beg his father to save him from the dangerous situation. He claims he was attacked by a man claiming to be a great martial arts master. The policeman clarifies the name of the alleged imposter, suspecting that it is John. He also asks the name of the young man's father to finally confirm his suspicions. Upon hearing the answer, the man immediately orders his son to fall on his knees and beg for forgiveness. Van is shocked because he has known John since childhood and believes that he cannot be a great master. But the father reports that he recently saw the young man in person at an auction and checked his background. Following this, all the former classmates fall to their knees, admitting their mistake. John tells them to run away from here and never appear in his path again. After this, the guy also gets ready to leave, taking Yao by the hand and leading her along with him. But at that moment, the same young man who approached him upon his arrival at the banquet mark calls him. He begs to be accepted as a student because he also dreams of becoming a martial arts master like John. The young man explains that not everyone is given the ability to use spiritual energy. It is a rare ability. Mark doesn't give up and grabs the guy's leg tightly, trying to at least test his strength. His willpower amazes John, so he decides to give his comrade a chance to prove himself. After testing his classmate's abilities, he is surprised to discover that he has the body of a fire spirit. Even in the world of cultivators, such people are considered geniuses among tens of thousands of others. Such a body is ideal for alchemy or improving weapons in battle. John asks Mark if he is really ready to go through the difficult path of becoming a master. Without hesitation, the boy agrees, and the young man teaches him the fire technique of purification. Thus, he accepts him as his first disciple in the long journey of cultivation. Meanwhile, Van is raging in the streets, furious at the humiliation that happened to him earlier. From behind him, Sai and Qian approach, mocking his helplessness. Consumed with anger, he tries to hit the strangers, but their movement stops him. He is offered a chance to take revenge on John, because they saw everything that happened at the banquet. Van calms down a little, but admits with annoyance that he is no match for that guy. Sai explains that only a small favor is required from him, and they will do the rest themselves. Returning home, John listens to his father's reservations about two strong warriors. The man says that those from the Song clan have reached the top of the kingdom, so they pose a threat. He urges the young man to be careful, but he dismisses his father's words lightly. Yao comes into the room and says that she will not come to dinner because a close friend has invited her. This makes the guy suspicious because he wonders how anyone knew that she was in town. Yao suggests that the acquaintance might have been at the banquet and accidentally recognized her among the guests. John suggests going together because he is still worried about the safety of his girlfriend, but she refuses and advises the guy to spend some time with his parents. Despite this, he does not want to let her go unattended, so he asks a friend to keep an eye on her. On the street, Yao meets his friend Marie, sincerely and joyfully greeting his old acquaintance. They exchange compliments, after which Yao asks to show her her friend's house. Marie suggests taking a short walk, but Yao insists on how his old friend lives. At the door to the apartment, Marie acts nervously, suggesting to come back some other time. Eventually, she suddenly turns back and starts to run away, leaving the key in the latch. Before Yao can do anything, the door opens and Wang appears on the threshold. He grabs the girl by the hand, and her friend explains through tears that her parents have been taken hostage. The image maker behaves disgustingly and threateningly, persistently approaching the girl. Undeterred, she kicks him, and he falls to his knees, letting go of her hand. However, it is not possible to escape, because there is already a crowd of men standing around blocking the exit. She and Marie are tied up and taken away, accompanied by threatening words from Van. At this time, John goes outside to get some fresh air, tired of his parents' curiosity. Suddenly, Sai and Qian approach him, addressing him with feigned self-confidence. It was at this moment that the boy received a call from Yao, and he answered it with concern. At first, there is only silence on the other end, until the voice of Van's former classmate is heard. He reports that John's girlfriend is in his hands, although for now she seems to be in no danger. The young man instantly falls into a cold rage, mentally advising him to let Yao go before he kills Wang. The interlocutor only laughs, enjoying the power, noticing the anxiety in the guy's voice. He orders John to go with Sai and Qian, after which the meeting will take place at the Song clan's house. Having put away the switched-off phone, the young man realizes that he is forced to follow two enemies. They lead him into the mountains, which surprises him as he thought they were heading to the Song clan. John experiences unusual aura fluctuations in the air when suddenly a dome appears around him. His entire body suddenly becomes heavy, and he is no longer able to use any of his powers. The twins appear before him, advising him not to twitch, because any attempts will be pointless. Members of both families appear around, and Min is shocked that the boy is still able to stand. They bring a sword blade to the young man's throat, preparing to end his life in the next moment. The weapon is already raised above his head, but suddenly the Imperial seal is activated. The sword shatters into pieces the moment its blade touches John's body. The twins are stunned that the young man is still capable of using such a powerful move. The young man explains that the Polar Star technique is merely a means of disrupting spiritual power. It interferes with the smooth control of ki, but his royal body allows him to direct it against the flow. John goes on the offensive, pushing his opponents back to a safe distance from him. Wushun warns that within the array, their spiritual power can still double its level. The young man responds with disdain and suggests that they give it their all, using all the means at their disposal. This only pushes the twins forward, and they decide to show their true strength in full. Observers from the family step aside, trying to keep their distance from the dangerous technique. Two enemies rush towards John, raising a wave of incredibly powerful spiritual energy. Their impact causes the mountain to collapse, leaving behind a giant, shattered patch of land. But the young man remains unharmed, suddenly appearing behind his brothers and grabbing them. He kills his opponents by squeezing ropes and sucking the souls from their exhausted bodies. Everyone present trembled in horror as they watched such a merciless and shocking demonstration. John calls his next victim to him, and his gaze stops on the frightened Sai. The guy takes a step forward, and Sai falls to the ground, hobbling pleadingly and asking him not to come closer. He desperately reminds her that he still has a frightened and defenseless Yao as a hostage. This doesn't stop John, and he lifts Sai's body into the air, intending to absorb his power. However, before this can happen, Yao suddenly appears with Mark holding Van. Earlier, John had instructed his student to save the girl, and he carried out the order without delay. Now the young man can stop worrying about her safety and focus entirely on pest control. But another intervention stops him. The head of the Song family and Sai's father asks to spare his son. However, the man realizes that refusal could put the whole family in danger, so he backs down. John tells the prisoner that he must rely solely on his own strength and determination. After this, he kills Sai, throwing his devastated body to the ground like an empty shell. The guy declares that from now on, he doesn't want to hear anything about the Song clan or the ancient schools. They swear to him that this will be so, and then he turns his gaze to the representatives of the second family. Her leader begins to beg for mercy, claiming that he has always respected Father John. They never came to officially break off the engagement, although it should have been done long ago. Even the boy's father himself asked for them to be released, so John decides to act differently. He wants to be provided with high-quality herbs and rare materials for future purposes. Yu runs up to the boy, trying to tell him something important that can't wait any longer. John promises to talk a little later, because now he needs to sort things out first. He leaves Van under Mark's supervision so that he can't harm the girl again. After this, he returns to Mina so that he can take him to the warehouse that belongs to their family. They arrive at the pharmacy, which houses the largest stock of medicinal herbs on the continent. There are indeed a lot of ingredients inside, but John needs something very specific and rare. Having noticed what he needs, he opens the drawer and takes out a ginseng root, not hiding his pleasure. The young man kicks Min out, intending to finish processing the pills he needs right there on the spot. They must help his father support him on the difficult path of cultivation. Meanwhile, Yao returns to John's parents' apartment, thinking about his recent mistakes. She is upset and reasons that she constantly becomes a burdensome concern and weakness for the guy. The girl decides that she wants to master martial arts so that she will never be a burden again. Suddenly she hears Dean's voice, to whom the very same ones who once crippled him have come again. This time they didn't come for him, but were looking for his son. Now their goal is completely different. Yao enters the room and asks who these strangers are who appeared without warning. Dean warns her not to come closer and asks her to run as quickly as possible while she still has the chance. Two men in black stop in front of Yao, and ants run across the girl's body. These people are clearly dangerous, and she must notify John about them immediately. Luckily, the guy himself appears right behind her at the most crucial moment. He shields the girl with his own body, gently pushing her behind him for protection. Before him, stand the same two men who once caused irreparable harm to his father. However, to John's surprise, there is no malice, hostility, or aggression coming from them. On the contrary, the strangers ask the young man to go with them because their master demands it. Dean tries to intervene and protect his son, but the attackers instantly grab the man. He is advised to do everything he is told if he really wants to stay alive. The young man does not dare to start a fight right now because his family could be seriously injured. He agrees to leave with the strangers if they let Yao and his parents go unharmed. He comforts the girl when she starts crying, assuring her that he is strong enough to survive. He also promises his father and mother that he will definitely return to them in the near future. Yao shares his worries about his own helplessness, but he calls it his strength. In his past life, when things were the hardest for him, she always stayed by his side and supported him. That is why he does not intend to lose her now, when new difficult trials lie ahead of him. The personalities lead the young man under the sad gaze of his loved ones and the closest people in his life. As John heads off in an unknown direction, he notices that the yin energy of his companions is frightening the animals. Even the birds avoid the road, so the boy realizes that it is too risky to go further with them. He stops and suddenly rushes forward, demanding that they show their true faces. The opponents react slowly, but to John's surprise, they are not harmed at all by his blow. The next moment, the guy receives a powerful blow to the stomach containing enormous spiritual power. He doesn't have time to do anything when his face is pressed into the ground with brutal force. One of the enemies advises not to resist if he wants to live to meet their master. The second figure comes closer and stops the companion before reaching the young fighter. Suddenly, John grabs the hand that is holding him back, confessing how long he has been looking forward to this meeting. He says he's eager to see the leader of the 9 assassins, the one behind all of this. Then the opponents decide to kill him, but the guy's body is enveloped in spiritual energy, creating a shield. John laughs, demanding that they behave more respectfully, since the king himself is standing in front of them. He challenges his enemies to show all their trump cards, hoping that they will not disappoint him. Both rush at the same time, activating Dark's Qi with frantic speed and force. The young man intercepts their attack, which is followed by a powerful explosion of unprecedented force. The cloaked figures lie overthrown, unable to withstand the youth's relentless onslaught. The guy notices something starting to move under their skin and a creature crawling out of their mouth. Their bodies are gradually restored, which causes John obvious amazement and wariness. Finally, he learns a spell that gives him increased strength and the ability to regenerate. To prevent the enemies from being fully healed, he needs to immediately destroy them completely. At first, John plans to use mind control, but one of the enemies suddenly attacks. He grabs it and explodes, trying to take John's life along with his own. The young man manages to defend himself and jump back, although everything was dangerously close. He didn't expect this organization to be so cruel and ruthless. Despite everything, he received important information about the 9 assassins, which is what he needed. In the luxury resort of Bamako, a casino is hosting auctions for valuable spiritual stones and artifacts. A stone is being put up for sale, the starting price of which is 500,000 silver coins. Those present are outraged, believing that this is a waste of money, as if money is being thrown straight into the abyss. But the man in the turban objects, explaining that some people spend tens of millions for nothing. Suddenly, one of the spectators raises his hand, offering the sum of 1 million silver for the stone. This is Mr. Chandi, known as the king of risky purchases, hunting for jewels at random. No one exceeds his bid, so he wins this trade without any struggle. The presenter raises a hammer to break the stone's shell and reveal what is hidden inside. A smile lights up Tayanda. He is lucky. This is the imperial thirst for the highest grade and quality. A gem like that is worth at least 2 million, so it's pure profit. Suddenly, John's voice is heard, indifferently noting that it is just junk with an aura. A guy was passing by and decided to also place a bet, despite the general opinion. Tayanda wonders if the young man has enough money, but he asks her not to interfere in his affairs. The next lot is brought out, and its starting price is only 30,000 coins. After taking one look at the stone, John offers 50,000 for it without hesitation. The man laughs because in his experience, it is an ordinary stone without any valuable properties. None of the participants are trying to outbid. They have been trying to sell this lot for a month. The host declares John the winner and asks him to pay for the purchase immediately. The guy agrees, quickly completes the payment, and the process of breaking the shell begins. Tayanda laughs silently, sure that the guy is about to embarrass himself in front of everyone present. All these blocks are covered on top with a thin layer of material that isolates spiritual power and is called protective skin. Even at the peak of his powers, John had a hard time seeing through her, but this time it was only a weakened version of her. The hammer strikes the stone, and inside is found the highest quality tiger spar. The guy is congratulated on a successful purchase, thinking that he was simply lucky in this unpredictable business. But John himself doesn't understand the admiration, because in the world of cultivators, this is almost an ordinary spiritual stone. He suggests that hard times have come to Earth, when resources are so depleted that precious stones are disappearing. The young man asks if it is possible to sell the stone he has mined, and is surprised by his frivolity. Everyone is shocked that he wants to part with a rare find so easily, as if it has no value. William, the one who once discovered the sacred stone, comes forward and offers to buy the spar. John announces the price, 1 billion, because such stones have long since ceased to have any value for him. The man agrees, instantly concluding the deal and topping up the guy's account with a large sum. After this, newsstands are put up with stones that were found on the land of doom this time. Usually, we manage to find up to 10 in a week, but today we already got that many in one day. While John is only on the first level of the king's body, he can barely feel the aura through the stone shell. But this is enough to detect the presence of an aura and immediately weed out the powerless empty stones. Tande places a bid on the 5th lot, also noticing a trace of energy, and the starting price is 10 million. John steps in, immediately offering the billion he just made from pre-sales. There are shocked people present, because it seems crazy to risk such sums in the lottery. Once again, no one dares to outbid him, so the stone officially goes to the young man. He makes the payment, and the hammer shatters the shell, revealing a blinding glow from within. It contains a sacred stone, for which William immediately offers 10 billion. But another buyer appears, ready to pay 50 billion for the jewel. John is warned that such a sum could put him in danger. They might come for him. To avoid this, William promises not only to pay the money, but also to provide personal security. The second man objects, declaring that the winner is the one who bids the most. He notes that he has the best security, trained professionals who are capable of anything. John stops the argument by declaring that he has no intention of selling the stone at all. Although it is not a sacred stone of the cultivator world, it still has great value. William doesn't seem to be trying to convince the boy that wearing the stone is more dangerous than money. In response, John activates his aura, demonstrating that he is ready to fight back against anyone who dares. He leaves the casino, leaving behind a stunned crowd of silent delight. Tunde assumes that this power is just a show and thinks about beating up John later. The young man himself reasons that William's spiritual power seems unlike that which is usual in the world of cultivation. However, he has knowledge of techniques from many countries, so he does not feel any anxiety. In his way stands Tayanda, along with a couple of thugs determined to hinder his further progress. This open approach seems pointless to the young man, because the truly powerful people always act from the shadows. The man understands the truth of this opinion, but still gives the order to his men to begin the attack. However, before they could even touch John, their bodies were already thrown back. William secretly observes the situation, realizing that he underestimated the guy from the very beginning. Now he understands that the young man really has great strength and is not an ordinary cultivator. John, meanwhile, grabs Tayanda, intending to make an example out of him for everyone around him. He strikes the man in the back, causing his body to immediately go soft, and he falls to the ground unconscious. The young man addresses the crowd, warning that this is the fate of anyone who dares to attack him. Everyone around was horrified by such a ruthless manner of action, which they did not expect at all. John's next destination is the market, hoping to find something useful there. One of the sellers calls out to him, offering to look at the old antiques on display. The vase that is shown to the guy does indeed belong to an ancient era, but this does not arouse his interest. The salesman doesn't let up, stalking John and continuing to insist that he pay attention. Suddenly, the young man notices purple gold sand with a rare aura inside the vase. This material is considered to be of very high quality in forging, but it is very difficult to recognize. John expresses a desire to purchase it, even agreeing to a price that is clearly inflated by the seller. Returning towards the hotel, he notices that he is being watched, and there is no action so far. Drawing the curtains, the young man pours sand onto the table and prepares to perfect his flying sword. He releases the sword embryo, beginning the refinement process with the collected material. Luckily, he has purple ki, without which it would be too difficult to combine his power with the sand. The embryo suddenly manifests its spiritual power and begins to refuse to accept the sand purification. John captures the wayward spirit and forcibly connects it to the material, preventing it from escaping. Finally, he gets his hands on a fully fledged flying sword, which he had long dreamed of. Suddenly, an assassin jumps on him from the roof and brings the blade of a katana right to his neck. The stranger demands that the sacred stone be given to him, without intending to engage in long conversations. The young man admits that the enemy is indeed fast, but notes that it does not matter to him. He releases spiritual strings that entangle the frightened enemy from all sides, preventing him from escaping. The threads bind the ninja, and John notes that this time they really sent a professional after him. The young man apologizes for the murder, but notes that he must set an important example for others. The stranger manages to replace his body with a wooden log, avoiding the fatal blow. Numerous clones of the enemy appear around John, merging with his true image. All copies have the same spiritual power, and it becomes impossible to distinguish the real one among them. The guy releases a powerful wave of energy around himself, blinding and stunning each clone. After this, he easily identifies the original and hits him right in the stomach with a devastating blow. His king body is significantly stronger than any opponent's abilities or defensive techniques. Outside the building, William and his men watch closely for sudden bursts of energy. One of the subordinates reports that 3 more strangers are trying to get inside, but before they can enter, a bright flash of light bursts out from the doorway. The figure of John appears, holding the fallen and unconscious assassin in his arms. He raises his body up and calls on hidden enemies to attack simultaneously instead of hiding. The guy throws a dead body which falls right in front of 3 would-be attackers. John's uncle watches the spectacle from a branch of one of the trees, amazed and unable to believe his eyes. He sees his own brother in the guy, not understanding how this is even possible. Meanwhile, the trio activates a technique known as the Cultivator's Combat Form Hardness. Anyone who can dye their body the color of spiritual armor is considered a great master of the sect. John admits that the situation is starting to escalate and calls on his opponents to attack him. The opponents rush into battle, but the young man easily dodges every offensive move. The enemies don't understand how he avoids attacks, but they don't stop, continuing to press from all sides. John barely manages to dodge the punch flying from behind him. As soon as he does so, he is suddenly grabbed and held tightly in iron delight. After this, the guy is thrown to the ground with all his might, raising a thick cloud of dust into the air. The young man had planned to play a little with the trio, but it seemed he had clearly underestimated their power. Now he becomes more serious, preparing to counter a coordinated joint attack. William is surprised to see that the boy is still full of strength and can fight 3 enemies. John's uncle, watching the fight, is sure that the guy is definitely losing now. Suddenly, his master appears nearby, believing that the young man has a chance to win. On the battlefield, the trio feels a terrible force that seems to be trying to completely engulf them. The opponents are about to run away, but John doesn't even allow them to move. His powerful blow to the ground creates a huge crater, and enemies disappear without a trace. The guy again addresses the invisible observers, calling on them not to hide anymore. A crowd of people gathers in front of him, but none of them rush to begin the attack. William notes that with such power, John has every right to keep the sacred stone. The events of that night were just a light game, and the man suggests that everyone disperse peacefully. Others support him, explaining that they gathered here only out of curiosity to see everything. But the young man is not at all so friendly, speaking mockingly towards William. The subordinate men demand more respect for their master from the young impudent man. But John has no intention of stopping, and doesn't even intend to apologize to any of them. His interlocutor is irritated, but does not want to get involved, blaming everything on the guy's youth. The young man stops William just when he wants to leave, demanding all the spirit stones. This applies to everyone present in the room. If they don't give it back, no one will leave here. The crowd begins to get outraged, not understanding where the guy gets such impudence and arrogance from. Uncle John and his mentor intend to use the chaos to take the stone. John again turns to William with the same demand, to give him everything he has. Unable to bear it, he calls upon the technique, the weapon of the Master of Divine Mind. This is one of the most powerful skills, capable of killing even several great masters. The young man is amazed that someone in this world possesses such a legendary technique. William prepares to attack, while the surrounding observers feel pity and despondency. They feel sorry for John. So young with the strength of a great master, he could have become a saint. The guy has dozens of arrows of light flying at him, designed to send him straight to hell. But John doesn't move, remaining motionless inside the column of fire. William considers it a great honor to die at his hands and be affected by his ability. He is convinced that he was able to defeat the impudent youth, and his confidence is destroyed by the guy's voice. From the epicenter of the still-burning fire, a huge shadow dragon of incredible power bursts forth. John is alive and well, hovering in the air next to the powerful creature he created. The subtlety of the King's Body technique lies in the ability of spiritual energy to control the 5 elements. The young man assumed that the arrows were a special magical weapon that could destroy his dragon. But these were only normal energy arrows, so he was able to easily defeat William. The man tries to deflect John's attack with his shield, leaving his rear completely exposed. The guy instantly goes around him from behind and strikes, while the opponent is unable to do anything. John laughs at the helplessness of William's methods, devaluing all his efforts. To his surprise, the young man sees that the enemy is still standing, although he should be physically weak. The husband rips off the remains of his shirt, revealing the armor that had been hidden underneath all this time. Now he decides not to allow the guy to even get close to him in battle anymore. But despite the plan, John quickly approaches from the flank, showing incredible speed. William's subordinates watch with alarm, realizing that the armor is already damaged. In reality, it was a clever move. The man deliberately demonstrates his vulnerability in battle. Suddenly, John's body stops moving, as if frozen, losing control of itself. This is another enemy technique that binds the enemy's body with the power of spiritual mind. With his next attack, the man hopes to kill the young man using the Avada's Fate technique. A beam of energy penetrates John's head, causing his legs to buckle and his body to tremble. It is a psychic attack from the Master of Divine Mind. Silent, terrible, and all-encompassing in its effect. The boy reaches out and grabs William, and William thinks John is begging for mercy. But in fact, the young man redirects the flow of energy of the ability onto the attacker himself. William falls, writhing in pain, clutching his head convulsively and losing strength. John explains that this is the most primitive form of psychic attack, which he can easily handle. Although he is not a master of divine intelligence, he is still able to destroy such a weak technique. The guy kicks William, pushing his body into the ground and keeping him under control. He finally admits defeat, hands over the spiritual stones, and asks for mercy. The young man reminds him that a moment later he was going to kill him with his deadly technique. The man tries to justify himself, but suddenly blood starts flowing from his mouth. Within a moment, he falls lifeless, causing a wave of panic among everyone present. After this, everyone unconditionally takes out their stones, meekly handing them over to John. A huge pile of jewels and cultivation resources grows in front of the guy. While all the fuss is going on, his uncle turns to his master for advice. He suggests that John may be an old warrior who has secretly regained his youth. Such words immediately arouse suspicions about the brother and give rise to a bold hypothesis. 2 men decide to approach the guy to find out if he knows the name Dean. John reacts instantly, asking if it is Shan standing in front of him, and after confirmation, he raises his hand. With a flick of his hand, He slaps the man across the cheek, causing him to fall and spit blood onto the ground. Shan tries to say something, but John strikes again without hesitation. The shocked master freezes in place, amazed by the incredible speed of the youthful movements. Raising his student, he warns him to be careful and advises him to act with more restraint. The young man demands that the spiritual stones be given back, even though he understands that he is not capable of killing the man who offended his father. Dean must avenge himself in order to remove the burden from his heart that has tormented him for many years. They fulfill the demand, intending to take revenge on the guy after they learn more about him. The two men walk away, promising to get even with John for the insolence he showed that evening. With a large number of stones in his possession, the guy prepares to concentrate his energy. He goes to the top of Mount Hushan, where a lot of spiritual ki is concentrated. This place has been attracting martial arts masters from all over the world for centuries. The guy starts the process by placing stones around himself using energy. He creates a star-shaped formation from them, although he has several low-quality samples. This is enough because the formation collects the energy of heaven and earth for cultivation. The quality of the formation determines how many times the speed of gathering spiritual power will increase. Even weak sects and clans had concentration formations in the center in their past lives. Currently, John increases the density of spiritual power at the summit by at least 20 times. Having completed everything necessary, he sits down in meditation to move on to a new level of the king's body technique. The young man begins the cooking process. His body is filled with spiritual power. It seems like a little more, and he will explode. The clothes can't withstand the pressure and tear, and the guy himself screams in pain, unable to contain his suffering. Giant pillars of light rush from the heavens straight into his body, filling him with energy. When it's all over, John reaches the second level of the king's body technique and the final limit of his power. At the earth level, this can be equated to achieving a holy master, which is extremely rare and powerful. From now on, he is able to destroy the Nine Ghosts organization without mercy or hesitation. The next day, the guy heads to the auction building, intending to learn something new. There he is, warmly welcomed and escorted to a separate box prepared for him in advance. He never expected anyone to come out to meet him, so he suspects the night fight was involved. Taking his seat, he listens to the host announce the lot, a pill to speed up cultivation. The condition is that it only works on those who have not reached the level of a great master. Despite this, she is admirable, because not everyone can even achieve this level. The auction begins and the price of the item steadily rises, causing a stir in the room. John recognizes this lot as a purification tablet. Although its quality is average, it is very rare. The young man is surprised that someone in this world was able to create it, because it is quite a difficult task. The son of Asia's richest man, Chen, immediately names 50 million for the proposed lot. None of those gathered dare to continue the bidding, and the tablet passes into Chen's hands without resistance. The next lot is the elixir of immortality, which causes perceptible vibrations of spiritual energy. It is capable of prolonging a person's life by more than 50 years, even if he does not cultivate it. A mysterious woman places a bet in the form of 5 sacred stones that have no monetary value. These stones are priceless in themselves, and it is completely impossible to acquire them with ordinary means. John concentrates and feels a strong energy leaving the stranger, similar to the 9 killers. When she glances at him, he realizes that she has noticed his attempt at observation. Her level probably reaches that of a Saint Master, making her a very dangerous opponent. The others hesitate to place a bet, so the elixir of immortality goes to a mysterious stranger. Her subordinate jumps onto the stage, hands over the stones, and takes the item she acquired. When she hands over the bottle to her mistress, she doesn't even touch it with her hand. John makes a guess as to who she might be, given her behavior and strength. There are rumors that once upon a time, 10 great masters united against 9 assassins, but they were defeated by the leader of the sect himself, and John suspects that the woman in front of him is him. When the stranger leaves the building, the young man decides to follow her to find out the truth. On the way out, he sees Chen stop her along with a group of his bodyguards. The subordinate woman orders them to leave immediately if they want to save their lives. In response, Chen declares that he will not leave without the sacred stones and the elixir of immortality. The very next moment, one of the men has his throat cut with a sharp dagger. The girl repeats the order to get out and not touch them, otherwise it will be even worse. But this only enrages Chen, so he orders his men to attack. But before they can get close, they all fall dead from the guards' swords. John finds this excessively cruel. As several people died at once, he continues to follow the woman when he suddenly notices a thick fog appearing out of nowhere. Too late, he realizes that this spell is similar to the one on the Isle of Bounty. He suggests that both spells could have been created by the same person. The woman addresses the boy, introducing herself as Cyanide, the 18th master of the 9 Assassin sect. She demands an explanation as to why John took the lives of several of her students. The guy ignores this, but tries to figure out what she wants from him. Then the woman invites the guy to join her organization because he is young and extremely gifted. Under such conditions, in her opinion, they will be able to resolve all existing disputes between themselves. But John doesn't like this proposal at all. He doesn't intend to forgive his parents' offenders. Cyanide just smiles, assuring him that he has no intention of standing on ceremony with him. Suddenly, hundreds of swords, filled with extremely powerful spiritual kiyas, fly towards the guy. Weapons surround him, and the boy wonders where the 3 opponents got such strength from. The blades turn and rush towards him, aiming to pierce his body. The female subordinate notes that the young man turned out to be not as strong as they first thought. But when the dust settles, they see John safe and sound, which shocks them to the core. There are only 2 swords in his hands, real ones, because all the others turned out to be fakes. The opponents cannot believe that he managed to find a real weapon and stop it with his bare hands. The young man notes with irony that this was just a cheap trick, unworthy of admiration. He throws the swords back at the girls, hoping to hit their target. One of them panics. The other reminds them of the need to use spiritual power for protection. Unfortunately for them, the weapon suddenly changes direction and ends up behind them. The blades pierce the heads of 2 subordinates, and they immediately fall dead to the ground. Cyanide rebukes John for killing her people, preparing to immediately avenge their deaths. The guy reminds them that they were the ones who attacked him first, and he was only defending himself from the threat. The woman doesn't want to listen to him. She's already rushing towards him with a raised weapon, creating several clones. Taking a closer look, the guy realizes that these are just illusions caused by incredible speed. He puts up his shield before the blade even gets close to his body. The opponent is at an average level of base formation, and John underestimated this. In response, Cyanide again assures him that she will kill him, although she previously wanted to give him life. The guy acknowledges her strength, but doesn't think she can defeat him in a fight. A woman uses the art of the 5 elements and summons a water dragon. John runs away, thinking as he goes, which was taught by someone with a very high level. The dragon strikes the ground and breaks into pieces, covering the youth's body. Cyanide paralyzes him, raises his sword above his head, and is about to deliver the fatal blow. The blade cuts through the body in front of it, but it turns out that it was a water clone. The real John appears from the side and tears the veil from his opponent's face. Beneath her, he sees an incredible beauty, more beautiful even than Yao herself. The rival is shaking with rage because of his insolence and such an undertaking. She creates the water dragon again, but John stops her with an unexpected question. He asks why he should fight, having such beauty, and offers to submit to him. Cyanide orders him to be quiet, noting that he is the first person to see her face. She does not intend to leave this unpunished, and is even more eager to kill the young man for his insolence. The woman throws a punch, which John easily blocks, jumping back to a safe distance. The guy creates his own dragon from the opposite element, fiery, engulfing everything around. The 2 techniques collide in midair, intertwining with each other to create a powerful clash. The woman is surprised that he has a skill so similar to her own. The young man explains that he is known as a master who has copied the 5 basic elements. He is able to master any of the 5 spells just by seeing it in action once. Cyanide does not believe that simple copying can reproduce the full power of the technique. She orders her dragon to create an energy ball and launch it at the boy. The guy doesn't lag behind and does the same, launches his fire attack towards him. The two spheres collide at the center and destroy each other in a bright flash of light. Suddenly, John's dragon grabs his opponent and deals a crushing fire blow to him. This attack even affects Cyanide herself. She falls to the ground covered in blood and scratches. The guy asks what connects her sect with the Immortals, demanding an answer. However, she refuses to speak, ignoring all the questions he asks. The rival reminds him that if he kills her, he will never be able to find her mentor. The young man objects, saying that if he managed to find her, then he will be able to get to the teacher. Cyanide instantly changes her tone, offering to take him to her teacher herself. She is convinced that her master is on a much higher level and will deal with him. She leads him to a cave located somewhere in the middle of a mountain range covered with rocks. The sect uses the ancient labyrinth as its hideout, hidden from all enemies and prying eyes. The woman suggests that John retreat, saying that he cannot cope with all the members of the 9 killers. The guy laughs it off and follows her until they open the gate and go inside. There they are met by a gigantic space in which there is astonishing silence and absolute emptiness. At the last moment, the young man notices the trap and manages to protect himself with a shield from the unexpected attack. A network of spiritual energy, created in advance by hidden members of the sect, falls upon him. He thought there was no one there, but in fact it all turned out to be a carefully planned ambush. Cyanidov regains his dignity after noticing that the guy is devaluing their organization too much, but he only scoffs, claiming that cheap tricks will not work on him in any way. John summons his flying sword, intending to test its power in real combat. The woman can't believe her eyes. The guy has a weapon available only to real cultivators. The young man swings his sword, creating a cutting wave that quickly cuts through the air in front of him. Opponents try to create spiritual shields to repel the powerful attack. However, the impact is so powerful that it leaves behind a giant hole in the solid ground. The enemies are scattered to the sides, and only Cyanide remains standing, watching what happened. Some manage to survive, and now they join forces to strike a common blow. A giant energy blade is heading towards John, but it doesn't cause him any concern. The young man easily repels the attack, and then kills several more opponents without effort. Addressing the woman, he confidently declares that today the 9 murderers no longer exist. But suddenly, an incredibly powerful aura washes over him, changing the situation around him. So the young man falls to his knees, unable to rise or even move. At the top of the stairs, the silhouette of Cyanide's mentor, a man named May, appears. Everyone immediately bows before him, showing respect to their main guide. Descending, May throws John into a massive stone column with one swing of her hand. For the first time in his new life, the boy experiences absolute powerlessness and a complete inability to resist. The level of the cultivation world cannot be compared to the level of the martial arts world. The gap is gigantic. May notes the young man's amazing talent and regrets that he got involved with the wrong people. John stands up, confidently declaring that for him everyone is guilty and everyone will be punished. He rushes forward, intending to pierce the sect leader with the blade, but May stops him by grabbing his neck and instantly stopping his movement. The husband is sure that the guy cannot win because the difference in strength between them is too great. He forcefully slams John into the ground, causing severe internal bleeding. After this, May orders Cyanide to lock the guy up and not rush into executing him. But suddenly the young man rises again and smiles madly, as if he feels no pain. He remembers that it has been a long time since anyone has hurt him more than a few scratches. His body is enveloped in a powerful aura. His hair grows rapidly, pulsating with energy. For the first time in his new life, he uses the full power of the King's Body technique. Although this is only the initial stage, its power is still felt by everyone around. The woman is shocked because John's aura suddenly becomes stronger than even her mentor's. Before anyone even notices, the young man is already rushing forward at breakneck speed. May manages to put up a shield and is confident that even such speed will not hurt him. But John challenges this notion when his opponent's staff begins to crack. It shatters into small pieces, and the young man delivers a crushing blow, giving no chance for resistance. The enemy doesn't have time to do anything. John's leg is already flying with incredible force. The guy throws the cult leader around like a rag doll, shocking everyone around him. The observers cannot believe what they see because their mentor has never suffered a defeat. May finally rises, using the water spirit body technique to power up. This rare ability stimulates human potential, doubling physical strength instantly. Even in the world of cultivation, such a technique is considered extremely rare and powerful. Despite this, John firmly believes that he can win, even when facing such an opponent. The opponent concentrates energy in his palm, preparing for a decisive lightning attack. The young man meets her with his own fist, blocking the hand that is rapidly approaching him. Their energy collides, creating a blast wave that spreads out in all directions. Both fly in opposite directions, trying to escape the force of the impact. John realizes that May is no match for him. The force of his attack should have penetrated the enemy's shield. The husband is almost exhausted and does not understand what kind of technique his opponent just used. The young man rushes forward again, fully prepared for the next tense encounter with the enemy. The cult leader dodges the attack, moving behind the guy to break his arm. However, he fails to carry out his plan. John intercepts his opponent's wrist. The guy aims a blow straight at the stomach, and May flies away, falling into the stone wall of the cave. The mentor's condition worries Cyanide, as he is covered in blood and can barely stand. May shudders, not believing that a young man of his age could possess such overwhelming strength. John mockingly remarks that if he hasn't met such people, it doesn't mean they don't exist. Then the opponent decides to use his last hidden trump card to avoid defeat. Deep in the cave, he once created an invulnerable water spirit body for the worst possible moment. This technique continuously saturates May with spiritual energy, maintaining his state at the highest level. He summons a water dragon and then sends the massive creature towards John. Without losing his composure, the boy also summons a fiery creature to contain the attack. During the clash, May's dragon easily destroys John's copy of the fire beast. The man points out that the guy's technique is too weak to withstand real strength. The guy just smiles, holding a shield around himself, against which this creature beats in vain. The head of the sect creates 6 creatures at once, which causes genuine surprise in John. Even at a high level, this is impossible. So he suspects that it is due to the power of the array. Eventually, his defense breaks down, and the guy has to dodge the enemy's attacks. Within the body of the water spirit, May's spiritual power seems truly limitless and inexhaustible. John deliberately provokes his opponent to use all the techniques and resources at his disposal. A man summons the king of water dragons, a giant monster of incredible strength. He rushes towards the young man, and John again creates a powerful protective shield around himself. There is a powerful collision, and Cyanide anxiously asks if the boy is still alive. Her mentor is surprised, because it seems that the woman does not want John to die at all. They are distracted by the strange behavior of the dragon, which begins to explode from within its own body. The guy bursts out of his mouth like a comet, scattering enemy equipment around him. It is covered in purple flames, which looks strange, because water is stronger than fire. But this is not just any flame. This is the Twilight Purple Lotus technique, rare and devastating. The burning flower opens right under the shocked gaze of a fear-stricken May. He rushes towards his opponent, engulfing his body in flames and causing wild pain. Purple fire cannot be extinguished until the target is completely burned out to background. The man in a rage reproaches John for such treacherous methods of fighting without honor. The young man reminds that it is their organization that is responsible for many brutal crimes. May has no intention of going in peace and wants to take the boy with her, leaving no chance of escape. He activates a powerful technique that should destroy everything around him in one huge explosion. The sect members scatter in panic. Only Cyanide remains motionless in her place. People are unable to escape because everything around them is collapsing, crushing the fugitives with stones. John is shocked by the spiritual force of the apparent power. An explosion is about to occur. In the blink of an eye, an entire mountain disappears, turning to dust due to the destructive force of the explosion. Despite everything, The guy survives and even manages to save Cyanide from the ruins. If he hadn't advanced to the next level of King Body, he wouldn't have been able to withstand the blow. The woman pulls out a hidden dagger, trying to stab the guy in the back unexpectedly. He manages to dodge, so he only gets a minor scratch on his hand. Cyanide tearfully asks him why he decided to save her and not someone else. John explains that he will still need her while she is alive, because not everything between them is finished. However, the woman does not intend to appear so easy and wants to avenge her mentor. The guy notes with disappointment how stupid this is after everything he saw. The release of his spiritual energy throws his opponent back, not giving her even a chance. She has nothing to oppose, and she is still breathing only thanks to his decision to spare her. Coming closer, he grabs her face, forcing her to look him straight in the eyes. The guy invites her to stop fighting and serve only him. The woman replies that no follower of the 9 Killers has ever lived more than 3 months in freedom. Each member of the organization takes a pill called Leopard Base, which gives strength, but is addictive. John smiles because he thought everyone was his loyal followers, but in reality, it was despair. Cyanide slaps his hand away, confidently declaring that it is better to die than to live dependent on the pill. Then the young man offers to give him an antidote to finally free him from the poisonous influence. The woman does not believe that he is capable of this, because only the highest level masters pass on medicines to their students. The guy pulls a ring out of his bosom, a spatial artifact that belonged to May. At the last moment before the explosion, he managed to snatch it from his opponent's finger. John opens the vault and reveals a variety of weapons, items, and all sorts of substances. Among all the wealth, the woman actually notices an ampule with the inscription Antidote to Leopard Base. The guy again offers her to submit, and then he will rid her of this dependence forever. Finally, she kneels before him, swearing an oath of fidelity and complete humility. The young man warns that if she betrays him, her life will turn into hell with no chance of escape. After this, he orders her to resume the activities of the 9 Killers and find him in 10 days. Then he will give her the medicine, and the woman meekly agrees to these conditions without objection. The cyanide goes away, and as soon as it disappears from sight, the guy falls to his knees, unable to bear the pain. He held on with all his might, holding back the bleeding so as not to reveal any weakness to him. Looking around at the contents of May's vault, John notices spirit stones of the highest quality. He also finds pills designed to quickly heal the cultivator's wounds. The guy quickly swallows the recovery pills, planning to create them himself in the future. He sits down to meditate, and within an hour he breaks through to the middle level of the Qin stage, becoming stronger. Combined with the king's body, this gives him truly supernatural strength that exceeds expectations. The boy then receives the sword, deciding to test its effectiveness in a real test. With one movement, he cuts down the tops of several rocks located near his training site. His strength is not yet enough to fully unlock the sword's potential, but more is yet to come. Over time, as his cultivation grows, the power of this weapon in his hands will also grow. More than 2 weeks have passed since John left his parents' house, and he decides to return. Arriving at the airport in his hometown, the guy is confronted by a large crowd of fans. Everyone is congratulating the singer Ellie, an incredibly popular star of John's generation, with admiration. In the past, her voice supported him in the most difficult moments of his life, remaining special to him. Unfortunately, in this reality, she died in a car accident, which was a great tragedy. The young man notices with suspicion that her necklace is emitting dark negative energy. He suggests that her death was related to martial arts masters and not an accident. Suddenly, the guy realizes that today is the day when the accident is supposed to happen. Nearby, he notices another girl, Molly, who is in the group Honey together with Ellie. She has the aura of a warrior cultivator and seems to be angry with Ellie. On the street, the manager asks the singer if she really wants to go alone without an escort. Ellie insists, and the man has no choice but to agree with her choice. Noticing Molly, the girl offers to go for a ride and sit in a cafe together, but is refused. Molly is about to leave with her manager and wishes Ellie to take care of herself without hiding her coldness. As soon as the car starts moving, Molly calls an unknown person and reports that the target has left the place. While the girl is driving along the highway, someone deliberately sets up an accident for her by driving a truck towards her. Ellie doesn't have time to react, loses control and crashes into a tree on a bend in the road. The task performer calls Molly on the phone, informing her that everything has been completed according to plan. He plans to take the necklace, imbued with dark spiritual energy, instead of the tracks. But suddenly John appears, saving the singer from certain death at the last moment. A guy hits a truck driver, causing him to crash into the back of the truck, leaving deep dents. Ellie comes to her senses, seeing John's face, and tries to understand who is standing in front of her. The young man explains that they wanted to kill her, and that is why he showed up and pulled her out of the car. The girl is surprised because she didn't even have time to see the threat, and this guy saved everything. She cannot understand who would be so cruel as to plan such a murder. The man who was driving comes to and tries to attack John from behind. He is also a master of martial arts, but poses no threat to the young savior. The driver is proficient in the second style of the Shian school, a fist that attacks from 3 sides simultaneously. Only 7 people in the world have gained the ability to use this fighting technique, and yet John easily knocks his opponent to the ground, recording his movements and interrogating him. The man admits that it was Molly who sent him, causing a real shock to everyone. The driver suddenly jumps up and runs to the truck, hoping to escape the scene, but the young man doesn't let him escape. With the help of spiritual power, he blows up the car instantly. Ellie is worried about the cruelty of the actions because she doesn't want even her enemies to die. But the guy calmly replies that mercy towards enemies is cruelty towards oneself. The next day at the party, Molly informs her accomplice Lou that the task is completed. This man once confessed his love to Ellie, but she rejected him, which greatly offended him. Molly distracts him from his thoughts by hugging him tenderly and thanking him for the funding. Lou promises that if she obeys him, she will not need anything. The manager approaches them, anxiously asking if Ellie has arrived yet. The book signing is due to start soon, and she is worried about her absence. Molly's benefactor offers to replace the singer with her colleague until the situation becomes clearer. The manager reluctantly agrees, since now it is Lou who is in charge of everything. But suddenly a familiar voice is heard. Ellie enters the room. Molly is in shock. She can't believe her eyes. The girl she thought was dead is alive. Tensions rise rapidly, and Ellie explains to everyone that John saved him. Lou, using his authority, tries to kick the guy out, saying he doesn't have an invitation. He calls for the bodyguards, ordering them to take John out of the room immediately. But as soon as the guard touches the young man, Ellie stands in front of him, declaring he is her personal guest. Molly tries to intervene and calm the girl down, but Ellie suddenly slaps her across the cheek with her palm. The singer begins to scold her colleague, noting that she always considered her a sister on stage. The guards try again to move the guy from his place, but their efforts prove completely useless. Lou realizes that the guy is a martial arts master and decides to settle things on his own. He raises his fist to strike, but the next moment, John cuts off his hand with one movement. The limb falls to the floor, plunging into a pool of blood, and the young man notes that the threat has been neutralized. Lou, shaking in pain, orders the guy to be killed, and a crowd of people rushes at John from all sides. However, the young man easily scatters all his opponents, not encountering any worthy resistance among them. Meanwhile, in the main boss's office, a man is talking to Xiao, asking to be introduced to John. He replies that John disappeared about a month ago, and even Elder Xia has no contact with him. A security guard runs into the room, announcing that the young owner's hand was cut off right there on the spot. The boss immediately follows the subordinate, without having the opportunity to fully understand the situation on the spot. In the hall, Molly stares tensely at the young man who easily defeated Lou right in front of everyone. She rushes to Ella, trying to evoke pity and begging her for mercy and compassion. John isn't about to stand for that, creating an energy beam and shooting it at Molly's feet. Lou's father arrives on the scene and begins to worry about his son's life and health. He threatens to make the offender pay double for every blow he inflicts on him. Xiao appears, recognizing John, bows to him, and greets him as the head of the fighting alliance. He admits that he had been looking for John for a long time and was sincerely glad that he had finally appeared. Lu's father is shocked because a martial arts master known throughout the country stands before him. He immediately falls to his knees, forcing his immobilized son to do the same. John notes skeptically that just recently this man threatened him with cruel reprisals. He begins to slap himself, begging for forgiveness and offering the most sincere apologies. He is ready to sacrifice his own son just to save himself from possible death. John throws them out, not wanting to waste another minute on these people or talking to them. After this, he turns to Xiao, asking why he was looking for him so persistently. In the youth's absence, the head of the Northwest attempted to invade the city without warning. The boy is eager to learn more about this man who leads the forces approaching their lands. Tianlong is the king of the Northwest, the ruler of 5 provinces and several martial schools throughout the region. John's city is not part of his territory, and they have not interfered in each other's affairs before. But recently, Tianlong's people have begun to regularly cross the borders and destroy martial schools. The young man asks if these people know about him, and Xiao confirms that they know who he is. When the invaders heard John's name, they called him a dog worthy only of leading the pack. This immediately incites anger in the youth, causing him to target Tianlong himself without hesitation. He tears a dark necklace containing poisonous magic from the neck of Ellie, who was standing nearby, explaining that the decoration was poisoning his life every day. He angrily destroys it without regret. Filled with rage, John leaves the premises, aiming to visit Tianlong in person. On the grounds of the Xia family martial arts school, the invaders taunt and challenge John. They encourage him to come out of his shell and stop hiding if he has any courage. One of the men theatrically feigns fear, drawing loud laughter and mockery from his comrades. Feng steps forward, trying to protect his mentor's honor from humiliation. The offenders begin to mock her, throwing obscene words and explicit hints. This infuriates her grandfather, who rushes forward, wanting to teach the impudent ones a lesson. But he is neutralized with one blow to the stomach, after which he flies back, coughing up blood. A worried Hans and Fen gather around the wounded man, kneeling beside him. The granddaughter angrily walks towards her offenders, blazing with an incredibly powerful spiritual aura and determination. The elder tries to stop her, reminding her that her body cannot yet withstand the power of the technique she received. But the girl does not back down, because without action, she will not be able to earn the approval of her teacher John. She meditated and trained for a long time, ignoring pain and fatigue, to prepare for the upcoming fights. Fen creates a huge fireball, the first swirl of destructive flame to destroy the enemy. The enemy erects a protective shield, trying to cover himself, while his comrades flee in panic. There is great power hidden in the girl's fire, and the man fears that he may not be able to withstand the onslaught. But just a moment later, Fen suffers damage due to his own haste and overload of power. Taking advantage of her weakening, the enemy prepares to strike a fatal blow and kill the defenseless one. But at the last second, John intercepts the attacker's hand, stopping the attack with a stone face. The young man acknowledges Fen as his student, and she, despite the situation, is happy with his words and approval. He advises her to rest and let him deal with those who caused harm. The enemy demands that he be released, threatening serious consequences and revenge. At this moment, Xiao appears, pointing out the man as the one who defamed John's name. The thief is surprised that the head of the alliance himself, whom everyone fears and respects, stands before him. The young man confirms his identity and then raises his hand to punish the culprit without regret. It pierces the enemy's stomach through and through, leaving him no chance to resist or escape. The deceased's brother is consumed with rage and is preparing to avenge his relative's death in battle. However, his attack proves useless, breaking against John's invulnerable power every time. Trying to hit again and again, he is unable to cause even the slightest harm to the young man. Eventually, the young man counterattacks, sending his opponent flying back with a powerful, precise blow. The alliance members ask John to kill the invaders because many of their comrades have been wounded. But he orders the release of the enemies, ordering them to return to the ruler of the Northwest. The young man asks to convey his determination to meet, demonstrating his readiness to talk. While the attackers are running, He shoots fireballs at them without causing any real harm. When the invaders finally disappear, John takes out the recovery pills from his pouch. He hands over the medicine to Elder Xia and Feng, advising them to learn from the situation. After this, the young man leaves everything in the care of the old man, telling him to call if necessary. When he calls Yao on the phone, the girl begins to scold him for his long absence and silence. The young man guiltily makes the excuse that his phone's battery is dead and he forgot to charge it. He sincerely apologizes for his concern, asking if the girl is at home now. The guy is waiting for her in the yard, and Yao happily runs out, hugging him with tenderness and relief. John reassures her that nothing will happen to him and that he is safe. Yao shares his worries, admitting that he feels like a burden in his life. But for John, it is her presence that is the greatest support for everything he has. Then the girl asks him to teach her how to cultivate so that she too can become useful to him. Surprised, he pulls back a little, asking what prompted her to make such a decision. The guy doesn't want to risk her life, so he refuses, fearing dire consequences. The world is too cruel, and John doesn't want her to lose herself in a whirlpool of murder and fear. However, Yao insists that she doesn't care as long as he is by her side every day. The young man ponders, weighing his decision, because his rebirth has already changed too much. Eventually, he relents and agrees to teach the girl the basics of cultivation. She joyfully hugs him, sincerely thanking him for the opportunity to develop next to him. In his mind, John vows to become even stronger to protect her from all possible threats. He subsequently gives Yao a pill that is supposed to help speed up the process of mastering spiritual power. But suddenly she feels ill. Breathing becomes difficult, her head hurts, and the guy reacts in panic. The transmitted spiritual energy does not penetrate, but bounces off the black force inside the girl's body. Her body suddenly rises into the air, saturated with chai that clearly does not belong to her. John tries even harder to drive the unknown entity out of her mind. Suddenly the light comes on, and he finds himself in the ocean of Yao's consciousness, amazed by what he sees. The place looks incredible, and even in his previous life, he would never have created anything like it. This surprises the guy, and he goes to investigate the strange energy coming from the palace. As soon as he takes a step, his body is suddenly pressed into the ground by a powerful force. It's hard to move, but John is not going to give up because he is fighting for his girlfriend. The spiritual pressure increases. Every movement leaves deep marks on the stone surface. Finally, he uses the full form of the king's body, which is capable of overcoming any obstacle. Inside the building, he sees Yao sitting on the throne in a beautiful outfit like a possessor. The girl's gaze was stern and completely different from what John had been accustomed to before. He demands an explanation because he feels this is not the Yao he knows and loves most. The stranger silently uses a mental attack, causing him severe pain. When the boy comes to, he finds himself lying on the lap of the real Yao. She leads the exhausted young man into the house, allowing him to rest after his ordeal. John sits down to meditate, wondering what he should do next. Although Yao is not yet in immediate danger, the entity within her remains a hidden threat. The next day, the guy keeps calling, preventing him from concentrating on his thoughts. Fen reports that the people from the northwest have appeared again with the intention of saying something in person. The young man promises to appear as soon as possible to personally clarify the situation and make a decision. Elder Xia is furious at the audacity of the foreigners who decided to return for a second time. The men try to calm him down, explaining that this time the ruler himself sent them. Fen doesn't trust strangers, offering to tie up the intruders until they talk. At that moment, John enters the room, and his powerful aura instantly changes the atmosphere. His people immediately greet him, bowing low before the strength and authority of their leader. Having dealt with the formalities, the young man asks for what purpose Qianlong sent the envoys. They arrive to convey an invitation to a feast, the purpose of which is to establish peace. The boy is skeptical about the idea of peace talks, sensing a hidden agenda behind it. He snatches the invitation and pulls it towards himself with spiritual energy to view it. Fen convinces John that the feast is just an excuse to lure him into a well-prepared trap. Yes, he himself understands this, so he is not going to refuse, because he finds it fascinating. The guy informs the envoys that he will arrive on their territory in exactly 3 days. At the appointed time, they arrive at Tianlong's mansion, which looks like a real palace. Siu explains that because the Northwest is far from the capital, the local leader has become like an emperor. Even the government and the army avoid conflict with him, considering him too powerful and influential. On his own territory, his subordinates again began to behave insolently and disdainfully towards others. Entering the hall, John and his companions appear before Tianlong himself sitting on the throne. He sits high, looking down on everyone in the room with his commanding gaze. The man and John exchange tense glances before nodding at each other in greeting. One of the leaders of the local martial arts schools suddenly jumps up from his seat, accusing the guy of humiliation. Fen intervenes in the dispute to protect the dignity of his teacher and prevent him from being humiliated. Very quickly, tensions escalate to the point where the situation escalates into a dangerous confrontation. The headmaster pushes the girl, but suddenly realizes that she is already in the late stages of transformation. John takes out a return pill from the spatial ring, arousing Tianlong's interest. Watching this, he wonders where the young man got such a rare artifact of great power. Meanwhile, the guy gives the pill to Feng so that she can defeat her insidious opponent. The girl swallows the medicine, activating the technique of prosperity of heaven and earth, the burning punishment of 9 turns. John is surprised and at the same time admires how skillfully she uses the power under the influence of the pill. Fen creates a fireball and directs it towards the head of the school, and his subordinates warn of the danger. However, the man does not lose his head and covers his hands with ice protection, preparing for the blow. He creates a huge fist, and 2 powerful attacks collide in the middle of the hall in a blinding flash. The flames depress the ice, causing those gathered to gasp in surprise, not expecting such a result. Eventually, the girl's opponent can't withstand the onslaught, and his body flies back from the force of the blow. Even after using one of the most powerful skills, the man still suffers a shameful defeat. When they run up to him, it becomes obvious that he is dead. The body shows no signs of life. The people of the Northwest immediately surround Feng, intending to capture her and punish her immediately. Xiao tries to calm the crowd, but they don't listen to her, seeking only brutal reprisals. Then Tianlong intervenes and orders his men to immediately stop any aggressive actions. He saw enough to understand that John was not as simple as he seemed at first glance. A man approaches a young man with a request to talk to him in person, without witnesses and noise. However, John points out that it doesn't look like a friendly invitation at all when they are surrounded by guns. Tianlong gives a clear order for everyone to disperse, and his servants immediately carry out their master's will. Fen also demands that her teacher be given a chair worthy of his position and respect. The locals don't like her tone, but they obey. The will of their leader is too obvious. John sits down unceremoniously right across from Tianlong, causing a wave of indignation among those gathered. Before the conversation can even begin, a new conflict and brawl breaks out in the room. The young man warns his opponents to leave immediately if they do not want to die right here and now. One of the men uses the cheetah paw technique and jumps on top of John with all his might. Others begin to whisper that only their leader is capable of repelling such a lightning attack. But a moment later, this thought is dispelled. The young man repels the attack with one careless movement. He pierces his opponent's body right through, driving all witnesses into true horror and shock. Then Tianlong enters the battle, approaching the youth incredibly quickly and striking. John doesn't have time to react, so his body flies straight into the courtyard through the walls of the building. Without giving his opponent time to recover, Tianlong delivers another powerful blow in the air. John is amazed that a man only halfway to the level of a sage can be so fast. His beating continues, causing deep concern in Xiao, as it is their turn next. Fen convinces his comrade that their teacher cannot lose, no matter how hard it is. It turns out that Tianlong is known as the Lord of Speed, but John didn't know that until now. The young man has to activate the full power of the royal body, changing his appearance. His new appearance and enhanced aura confuse the enemy, even though he doesn't stop. But this time, Tianlong's speed isn't enough. John suddenly finds himself behind him. The young man strikes his opponent straight in the back, and the latter's body flies forward without holding back. Tianlong stands up, scattering debris around and acknowledging his opponent's skill. But he also has hidden advantages, because the man calls upon the spiritual armor of the king. This is the level of a Saint Master, and his own people are also in deep shock. John notices that his opponent's speed has increased even more than before, yet he manages to dodge the blows that his opponent delivers with furious zeal. As the blow almost touches his nose, he deflects it with his own, clashing the two energies. Their collision throws them both in different directions, as if an explosion of an invisible force divides space. The young man uses the spatial fist technique, using it to suddenly dash forward. Thanks to this, he hits Qianlong, who cannot understand how his strength and speed are giving way. The man falls into the ground, leaving behind a huge crater that extends for several meters. But he stubbornly rises again, as if refusing to accept his own defeat and weakness. However, he does not make a new attack, but tries to run away, having lost faith in the fight. For him, John becomes a monster, with whom there is no point in competing, because there is no chance at all. The guy prevents the head of the Northwest from escaping by using his skill again. This time it becomes fatal, and the man falls lifeless, doomed by one moment of battle. Xiao declares John the new king of the region, calling on all dissenters to come forward. There are no people who dare to defeat him, and they bow their heads in silence before the young man. He is welcomed as the new ruler of the Northwest, recognizing his strength and right to lead the region. The guy orders everyone to address him simply as Great Master, without any unnecessary titles or superiority. While surveying his new domain, John learns that his name has appeared on the front page. Feng shows him an article with attached photos from the last battle and commentary on the events. The young man is surprised that the murder of Qianlong and the intervention in the situation are being openly discussed by people. It turns out there's an entire forum dedicated to speculation and theories about the old masters. John previously believed that such knowledge should be hidden from the general public completely. In fact, this site is created specifically for martial arts masters, with no outside access. To get there, you need to register as a member of the association, which is usually prohibited. The majority of comments say that the victory over the leader is just a fiction for sensational purposes. The forum piques John's interest, and he asks Fan to write a post on his behalf. It contains images and a call to challenge anyone who seeks to take his place. The girl and Xiao are worried about this prank, as it will cause a stir and lead to attacks. But this is precisely what the young man strives to achieve, provoking publicity and eliciting a reaction from the audience. Fen does as he's told, handing over the phone so the boy can check the message himself. Comments start appearing immediately, generating interest and a wave of discussion. People assume the author is an imposter because the account hasn't even been verified. John asks if he can become the official representative to avoid doubts and criticism. This is not possible because the forum is anonymous to maintain the privacy of all its participants. At that moment, his personal phone rang, interrupting his conversation and thoughts. On the other end, a voice introduces itself as a representative of the news channel Liana, asking a question. He inquires whether he is really speaking with the Great Master, wanting to confirm his identity. The young man confirms this and wants to know why they are calling him on the phone and what exactly they want from him. He is offered to give an interview and talk about the upcoming actions after the duel with Qianlong. John agrees on the condition that the video will be broadcast live on the Fighting Masters forum. His request is accepted, and he arranges a meeting in the main hall of the ruler of the Northwest. After the call ends, Xiao explains that it is the most influential social network in the martial arts world. Those who appear there instantly become popular and gain wide recognition from the community. At the appointed hour, the television crew arrives with cameras and microphones, preparing for the live broadcast. The presenter announces the start of the broadcast, and they go on air, beginning the long-awaited show. Comments immediately begin to discuss John's youthful appearance, expressing surprise at his appearance and age. The interlocutor first of all congratulates him on becoming the new leader of the northwest of the country. She wonders how the young man managed to defeat Qianlong with just a few moves without any effort. To this he responds briefly and dismissively, calling the enemy too weak to fight. After this, the woman asks if he is really 18, wanting to confirm the rumors. and John avoids a direct answer. She invites the guy to address the viewers directly and say something to his subscribers. The youth instantly changes, contemptuously declaring that anyone who challenges him will fail. The presenter is embarrassed by such behavior, but in terms of ratings, such impudence only adds to popularity. John continues to provoke the crowd, calling on them to come and try to defeat him in a duel. The woman backs up his words, promising to broadcast the battle live if it actually happens. For 2 days, a huge crowd of people wishing to defeat the new leader of the region gathers in front of the hall. But the young man defeats each of them in less than 3 seconds, astonishing everyone with his strength. Now there is no doubt left. He is praised and admired in the comments. Eventually, there is no one left who would want to compete with him for strength and skill. But suddenly, 3 holy masters from the Lu family appear, and this immediately attracts his attention. Without a moment's hesitation, one of them rushes into the attack, aiming to kill John on the spot. But John doesn't even get up, calmly parrying the attack as if it weren't a threat. His opponent acknowledges the incredible power of the aura that surrounds the young man like an impenetrable shield. At this time, the presenter approaches Fen, pressing too close to her. The girl is surprised that the journalist is also a martial arts master, although she hides it. She asks him to keep his distance, to which he replies that she is only interested in John himself. Fen irritably notes that the main thing is that her teacher is not interested in the journalist at all. Then the presenter steps away and begins broadcasting live the battle unfolding before her. John suggests that 3 opponents attack simultaneously to avoid wasting time. But the man who was the first to rush into the attack forbids his comrades to interfere in the fight. Fen is filled with confidence in the young man's victory, not doubting his skill. However, the presenter advises not to underestimate the 3 holy masters, despite their outward calm. They are over 100 years old, but they still amaze the martial arts world with their power. One of them activates the technology, and the room is instantly covered in ice and frosty haze. Fen shivers from the cold, not understanding what this force is and where such an abnormal change comes from. The host explains to her that this is Saint Master Chen Qi's most powerful technique, the Black Demonic Wind. Legend has it that where this force passes, not a centimeter of living grass grows. The opponent also uses the Black Demon technique, transforming his hands into claws. This is the first time John sees a martial artist use shadow-related techniques. He responds with light techniques, easily defending himself from the attacks raining down from all sides. The guy mocks the enemy, assuring him that he will not be defeated under any circumstances. But suddenly, behind the young man's back, there appears a second man, an exact copy of the previous one. John doesn't have time to dodge the claws that cut through his back, leaving a trail of blood. Fen is disturbed by what she saw and is overcome with anxiety for the teacher who has found himself in a difficult situation. The boy is surrounded on both sides, and blood is pouring from a wound on his back, soaking his clothes. Despite this, he rushes forward, attacking the enemy standing right in front of his eyes. But to the young man's surprise, his fist passes through the enemy's body without causing any harm. The real enemy appears behind him and strikes again, causing John to flinch. Fen asks the presenter, what is this great spiritual force that they have just observed? The woman tells a legend. When a warrior reaches the level of a holy master, power awakens within him. This allows a person to unlock the body's potential and obtain a unique technique, a divine secret. But John doesn't lose hope, because he's sure he just needs to find a weakness in the enemy's technology. He activates the king's body, the second level, which he recently managed to reach. This hits the enemy, who begins to randomly attack the guy in every possible direction. But he doesn't succeed, and in the end, John pierces his chest with his hand. Feng rejoices at his teacher's success, and the commentators watch the victory with amazement and delight. 2 other holy masters intervene in the battle, seeking to save their wounded comrade. One of them delivers a series of blows, raising clouds of dust that obscure the battlefield around them. But John remains unharmed, reminding them that he warned them to attack together. They chose to die alone, and therefore are the most responsible for the consequences of their rash choice. The second enemy quickly approaches from the flank, striking from a side that is difficult to control. Even with the king's body, the young man does not have time to dodge the enemy's powerful attack. The opponent uses a fist of air, and the wave of energy pushes John to the ground with furious force. Commentators speculate that if 3 had attacked simultaneously, the boy might not have survived at all, or at least he would have been left crippled, because he wouldn't have been able to withstand such a powerful attack. But John gets up and notices that one enemy is strong in close combat, the other in ranged combat. However, this is not enough to defeat him, because he already sees their limitations and weaknesses. The next moment, the guy finds himself behind one of them and throws the enemy far away. He hits another with a giant beam of energy that explodes from his hand with a roar. Spectators can't believe their eyes, calling the young man a real monster with boundless fighting talent. The fast enemy decides to go full force, revealing a secret technique previously unknown to John. However, at the same time, his movements noticeably slow down, as if his body has become heavy and sluggish. When John tries to counterattack, his own power suddenly dissipates without a trace. The enemy advises him to surrender, trying to convince the young man that victory will not be achieved this time. Jonah is thrown from side to side like a cloth doll, devoid of resistance and the ability to defend himself. The Holy Master captivates him with the technique of the most powerful iron delight, depriving him of movement. He calls on his comrade to use the 8 trigrams palm to kill John without delay. At the same time, he himself agrees to become the target of the attack, ready to die along with the guy on the spot. However, he assures that he will be able to survive, and the young man will become the only corpse. The next moment, John disappears from his grasp, and the entire blow is directed at the enemy himself. The guy ends up behind the last opponent, grabbing him by the neck with cold determination. He lifts the man into the air, already ready to kill him without a shadow of doubt or regret in his heart. Suddenly, an attack comes from above, forcing the guy to retreat and release the captive. Before him stands the head of the legendary Tai sect, the majestic Shiyun, with extraordinary strength. His spiritual energy is so strong that it surpasses even the leader of the 9 assassins. He came because of the death of his disciples, the holy masters of the Lu family who had fallen in battle. Shiyun asks to leave the last of them alive, and then promises to forget about the ancient images. But John only mocks this, demanding to be shown all the techniques of the Tai sect. This irritates the interlocutor, who is not accustomed to such impudent disdain. He reports that their techniques are the highest ones, inaccessible to everyone who wants them. It is up to the guy himself whether he has the talent to master their essence. Then the young man demonstrates one of the techniques, the palm of the 8 trigrams, which he had just seen in battle only once. He studied it on the spot at first sight, and his strength is not inferior to that of a holy master. John knows that there are 6 levels in the Tai system, and he believes that Shiyun is only on the 4th of them. In his previous life, when he first stepped onto the path of cultivation, he met a 5th level master, so he has a general understanding of all the stages. The opponent promises to pass on all his techniques to him if he can withstand the full force of one blow. The guy agrees, calling on him to use all the power that the man has inside. Shiyun uses the king's fist, and the explosive strike creates a giant wave of energy. When all is quiet, deep fissures remain in the ground, and the enemies are still standing. Both are coughing up blood, and the host assumes it's a draw with no clear winner. However, the next moment, Shiyun falls to the ground, and victory undoubtedly goes to John. The young man comes closer, asking if the man will hand over the techniques voluntarily and without resistance. In response, he asks if the guy can reach the 6th level and then teach him. John swears that it will be so, and assures that he never breaks promises made personally.